Chapter 280. The combination of the earth and water spells turned the arena into a swamp. He was chained up by the thick soil chains, trapped in the swamp, and rained heavily on the ground. If it were anyone else, they would have been suppressed. However, Huang Jiucheng was really strong. He was surrounded by roaring dragon breath and raging flames. Even though he was trapped in the swamp, he was still waving his fists. His fists were as bright as the sun. The chains on his body could not restrict his movements at all. Dragon flames burst out from his mouth. Together with the fists, a scorching aura spread out and evaporated the rain into steam. Even the swamp began to dry up. In the end, the water and soil magical techniques were completely nullified. However, when the two spells were broken, Jiang Chun had already formed a hand seal. Boom! With a loud explosion, the purple lightning struck the top of Huang Jiucheng's head. This time, Huang Jiucheng screamed in agony. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and many of the dragon scales on his body fell off. However, Huang Jiucheng was too strong. He punched out and shattered the second lightning bolt. Then, he charged out like a ferocious dragon. Seal! However, before he could reach Jiang Chun, many doctrine talismans appeared out of thin air, and a tactical formation appeared. The space inside the spell formation was distorted, and there were flashes of light. It was as if time and space had frozen. Huang Jiucheng was trapped in the spell formation and could not move at all. Dragon's aura! However, in the next second, Huang Jiucheng roared. A mighty dragon's aura burst out like an invisible gust of wind. In an instant, the spell formation was shattered. He took another step forward and threw his fist straight at Jiang Chen's face. Seal! However, when his fists were 3 inches away from Jiang Chun, a spell formation appeared in front of Jiang Chun. The spell formation was in the shape of a hexagram. The sun and the moon shone brightly, and there were also cryptic talismans that shone like stars. This time, Huang Jiucheng was trapped again. How many professions is this guy proficient in? Spells, formations, and barriers. From the looks of it, he should also be very good at martial arts. It was hard to imagine how a person could be proficient in so many professions at the same time. While the crowd was still in shock, a pair of dragon wings unfurled on Huang Jiucheng's back. Under the flapping of the dragon wings, a gust of wind swept up, and the barrier collapsed. Die! Huang Jiucheng roared and punched out with both fists. His fists were like 2 dragon heads, landing squarely in front of Jiang Chen's face. Bang! However, with a muffled sound, Jiang Chen's body collapsed and turned into dust. Illusion? Huang Jiucheng was shocked. He sensed something and quickly moved to the side. However, his movements were still a beat too slow. On his left, Jiang Chen's real body appeared. A cold glow flickered on his fingertip and pierced Huang Jiucheng's chest like a needle. Boom! With an ear-piercing explosion, the crowd saw the dragon scales on Huang Jiucheng's body shattering. Even the armor on Huang Jiucheng's body was cracked. Huang Jiucheng, admit that you are very powerful. However, this is the end of it. Huang Jiucheng's eyes were burning with anger. He stretched out his hand, and a dragon bone appeared in his hand. The dragon bone was like a sword, slashing toward Jiang Chun. Instantly, the dragon shadow and the sword shadow overlapped, as though they were going to tear the space apart. Barrier, solidify. Formation, imprison. Jiang Chun didn't dare to be careless. He activated his barrier and formation consecutively, and 2 light screens rose in front of him. However, the 2 light screens were like paper under the sword light of the dragon bone, and they were instantly cut into pieces. Then, the sword didn't slow down and went straight for Jiang Chen's glabella. Buzz! Just as the sword was about to hit Jiang Chun, the crowd realized that Jiang Chun had suddenly disappeared. Concealment? He's also proficient in the art of assassination? What the F***CK? Don't tell me he's proficient in all professions. The crowd was dumbfounded. Jiang Chun had used at least 5 different techniques since the start of the battle. Now, he was using the concealment technique that only Dark Masters knew. So what? The arena is only so big. Where can you hide? Huang Jiucheng took a deep breath and exhaled. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar exploded. The sound waves rolled out like waves and covered the entire arena. Puff! In the next second, Jiang Qin's body was pushed out from the edge of the arena. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The difference in cultivation is too big. On top of that, he has the body of a human dragon. It's really difficult to deal with him, Jiang Qin thought to himself. He didn't wipe the blood off the corner of his mouth. Yin-yang pupil, eyes of sun and moon. Within 3 breaths, Jiang Qin roared, and the light of the sun and moon shot out from his eyes. At the same time, the sun and moon appeared in the sky at the same time. A majestic aura descended from the sky, as if the sun and moon were falling. Huang Jiucheng's battle suit was completely destroyed by the aura. Even his Dao soul was forced back into his body. Huang Jiucheng's body was trembling, and his dragon scales were breaking. In the end, his body of a human dragon was completely destroyed. There's a difference of 2 major realms between them, but his body of a human dragon was destroyed. If they fight at the same cultivation level, won't Huang Jiucheng be suppressed? The exclamations never stopped. Some people even thought that if Jiang Qin won this battle, where would Huang Jiucheng put his face? The prince of the human dragon race had the body of a human dragon and was 2 major realms higher than Jiang Qin. Huang Jiucheng couldn't suppress Jiang Qin despite having such an advantage. Looking at the current situation, Huang Jiucheng was obviously at a disadvantage. I'll give you a chance, Jiang Qin said coldly. When he opened his eyes, the sun and moon rose and fell. It was as if he was going to dominate the universe. As I said before, apologize to young Lord Qin and young Lord Luo. Huang Jiucheng's face was as black as ink when he heard that. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Apologize? Was that even possible? Huang Jiucheng, admit that you're strong, Huang Jiucheng said coldly. However, don't think that you can defeat me with that. Dragon come? Huang Jiucheng waved his hand at the sky. The dragon's might and dragon's breath exploded and shot into the clouds like a rainbow. Roar! Suddenly, a loud dragon's roar exploded in the clouds. Following that, a pitch-black dragon with 3 horns on its head swooped down. Huang Jiucheng flew into the sky. The dragon's bone in his hand turned into a long spear as he stood on the 3-horned dragon. Dragon Knight! This is Huang Jiucheng's strongest trump card. Dragon Knight! Everyone exclaimed, and their expressions changed drastically. Especially when they saw the 3-horned dragon. Everyone felt like they were mere ants. You're 2 major realms lower than me, but you're able to force me to use my strongest card. If you don't die after this battle, your name will spread throughout the barren state. Huang Jiucheng said arrogantly. If you beg for mercy, I can spare your life. Chapter 281. No one had expected Huang Jiucheng to be so powerful. He was a rare dragon knight. The dragon clan was proud and would not become someone's mount under normal circumstances. Therefore, it was impossible for ordinary people to become a dragon knight. Moreover, even if one had a true dragon as a mount, it was difficult to become a dragon knight. That was because one could only become a dragon knight when one's heart and soul were connected to a true dragon. Huang Jiucheng, will definitely become the leader of the Young Baron Association. Huang Jiucheng became more and more arrogant. After all, he had used his strongest trump card. He was confident that he would be invincible among his peers. However, Jiang Qin had a strange expression on his face. That was because Huang Jiucheng's Triceratops was not a true dragon, but a semi-dragon. The true dragon's bloodline was not pure. It had 3 horns on its head and a flat tail. It was a far cry from a true dragon. Perhaps this Triceratops would be able to shed its mortal body and become a true dragon after a few more years of cultivation. But now, in Jiang Qin's eyes, it was just a 3-horned lizard. Is this your strongest trump card? Jiang Qin raised his eyebrows and said mockingly, Dragon Knight, right? As you can see, Huang Jiucheng raised his eyebrows. Admit defeat and submit to me, and I will spare your life. Let me think, Jiang Chun said with a smile. However, he was communicating with Nian Chang'e telepathically in his mind. Nian Chang'e, bring my little dragon here, Jiang Chun said telepathically. Now? Where to? Nian Chang'e asked. She was rather upset. After all, she had just brought the little dragon back to the heavenly temple a few days ago. If Jiang Chun was going back, why did she have to send it here? The city governor's mansion of the Tianwang city, Jiang Chun said telepathically. The heavenly temple has the ability to open a space tunnel, right? Just throw it out of the portal. Okay, Nian Chang'e replied. Buzz! 5 breaths later, the space above the Tianhuang city cracked open, and a light portal appeared. Then, Long Dade was thrown out of the light portal. Come here and talk to your descendants about life. Jiang Chun waved at Long Dade. What descendant? Long Dade was only as thick as an arm, but his face was arrogant as he stared at Jiang Chun from the corner of his eyes. His face darkened when he saw the triceratops that Huang Jiucheng was riding on. Who the hell is such a descendant? Long Dade exploded in anger and said, I am the ancestral dragon. How could my descendant be an alternative dragon? Then who knows what kind of sin your descendant committed? Otherwise, how could there be alternative dragons in this world? Jiang Chun ridiculed. You're messing around, aren't you? Long Dade was stunned when he heard this. His young face blushed. The True Dragon clan, especially the ancestral dragon True Dragons, had always been very casual. After all, standing at the top of all living beings, the ancestral dragon had the absolute right to mate. As a result, there were many strange wyverns in the world. Of course, the True Dragon race would never admit such a thing. It was an insult to the ancestral dragon. Get lost! Who gave you the courage to call yourself a dragon? Long Dade looked at the Triceratops with disdain. His young voice sounded old, and his dragon whiskers stood up as he shouted. Who do you think you are? Get lost! Woo! Although the Triceratops was an alternative dragon, there was still a trace of the true dragon bloodline in its body. Therefore, the moment Long Dade appeared, the Triceratops was terrified. The hierarchy of the True Dragon race was very strict. Even though Long Dade was born not long ago and his cultivation was low, the Triceratops did not dare to fight back. It did not even dare to look at Long Dade. Just like that, Huang Jiucheng's mount whined a few times before it turned around and left while the crowd was still dumbfounded. Huang Jiucheng was left behind with a confused look on his face. Is that your strongest trump card? Now, your dragon is gone, Jiang Chun said mockingly. Do you still want to fight? I will kill you. Huang Jiucheng snapped out of his daze. Although he had lost his dragon, he was still very powerful. With the advantage of his cultivation base, Huang Jiucheng did not think that he would lose to Jiang Chun. However, just as Huang Jiucheng finished his sentence, the Emperor's vines appeared behind Jiang Chun. As Huang Jiucheng made a hand seal, the vines turned into thousands of arms and slammed down on Huang Jiucheng. At the same time, a loud cry was heard. An undying bird that was covered in flames charged out from Jiang Chun's body. It was like a fiery blade that shot across the sky and landed on Huang Jiucheng's body. Poof! Poof! Huang Jiucheng spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. His entire body was entangled by the vines. His shoulders and thighs were pierced by a few vines. His waist was slashed open by the undying bird. If it were not for the strong defense of the dragon man's body, they would have been slashed in half. Jiucheng Rashomon. At this moment, Jiang Chun would not give Huang Jiucheng a chance to catch his breath. He made a hand seal with both hands and pressed them against the ground. Buzz! Boom! Amidst the rumbling, 9 enormous and ancient doors rose from the ground and charged at the Huang 9 layer in the sky. The 9 doors formed the 9 palaces and trapped Huang Jiucheng inside. Beams of mystic light that were as sharp as swords and sabers shot out from the doors. I admit defeat. At this moment, Huang Jiucheng's face turned pale. He could feel the aura of death looming over him. He had no choice. He did not want to die here, so he could only lower his head and admit defeat. Huang Jiucheng lost? He lost. He lost to a cultivator in the venerable realm. That's the prince of the Dragon Man tribe. A Heaven Realm Dragon Knight. How could he lose just like that? At this moment, exclamations shook the sky. Even the older generation was shocked. In the sky not far away, Ho Tao's eyes narrowed. He did not expect this outcome. Poof! Beside Ho Tao, Li Yuan's chest heaved up and down. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. I hate him. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have sent him to Billow Academy. Li Yuan felt bitter and regretful. Since you've admitted defeat, you should know what to do next, right? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and stared at Huang Jiucheng. Huang Jiucheng, apologize to young Lord Chen and young Lord Luo. I'm sorry. Huang Jiucheng's voice was loud, and his expression was arrogant. Although he had lost, it did not change Huang Jiucheng's character. Moreover, Huang Jiucheng was arrogant and could afford to lose. Just like what he had said to Jiang Chen earlier, he would only submit to those who were stronger than him. If Jiang Chen was stronger than him, he would submit to him. If he submitted to him, he would listen to Jiang Chen. That was all. As for asking Huang Jiucheng to give up his arrogant attitude and change his arrogant character, that was impossible. Hey, who the hell is undergoing the heavenly tribulation here? This is Tianwang City, the city governor's mansion. There are so many people here. Who's undergoing the heavenly tribulation? Are you trying to drag us all into this? Suddenly, someone cursed angrily. A 9-colored tribulation cloud had appeared above the city governor's mansion. Chapter 282. The 9-colored tribulation cloud was the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation, also known as the 9 destruction of the Great Tao. This kind of heavenly tribulation had rarely appeared since ancient times. In the past 10,000 years, no one had survived it. And now, the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation had appeared in the sky above the city lord's mansion. Once the heavenly tribulation fell, everyone in Tianwang City would be implicated, let alone the city lord's mansion. By then, how many of them could survive the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation? It's not mine, Jiang Chen mumbled guiltily, but the aura of the heavenly tribulation could not escape everyone's eyes. At the same time, Jiang Chen was panicking. He did not expect that the heavenly tribulation this time would be the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. The 9 destruction heavenly tribulation destroyed the 6 paths and destroyed the 3 realms. How many of them could survive it? Even in his previous life, Jiang Chen did not survive the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Jiang Chen, your heavenly tribulation? Are you crazy? Hurry up and leave. Leave Tianwang City. The group of people cursed and retreated, unwilling to be too close to Jiang Chen, afraid that they would be implicated. Even those experts, the elders and sect masters of the various sects and forces were flustered as they hurriedly flew into the distance. What kind of joke was this? This was the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Once it touched him, he would be severely injured even if he did not die. Get out of here! Ho Tao shouted angrily at Jiang Chen. He didn't look good at all. I can't leave. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly and helplessly. This was because once the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation appeared, it locked onto him. Moreover, around Jiang Chen, barriers of the great Tao had appeared, blocking his way. Now, Jiang Chen was trapped within 100 feet, and his freedom of movement was restricted. He could not leave the city lord's mansion at all, let alone leave Tianwang City. Everyone, retreat quickly, Ho Tao said hurriedly. Beside him, Li Yuan also looked terrible. He waved his hand and sent a large group of people out of the city. However, the heavenly desolate city was so large that it was impossible to evacuate everyone in such a short time. Once the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation struck, most of the living beings in Tianwang City would be struck to death. In fact, under the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation, even the heavenly barren city would be destroyed. I said, you can't blame me. It was Huang Jiucheng who insisted on fighting me. Jiang Qin's face darkened. Now, helping me is the same as helping yourselves. Bullshit. This is your own heavenly tribulation. Why should we help you? A sect's great elder angrily rebuked as he led his sect's disciples and flew out of the city. What a sin! You're only in the exalt realm, yet you're able to attract the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Did you do something wrong? One of the clan leaders was furious. His left hand was holding a disciple, his right hand was dragging another, and he was carrying another on his back. 2 more were sitting on his shoulders. His face was flushed red as he ran out of the city, panting heavily. The heavenly barren city is so big. No matter how fast you are, it'll take you half an hour to get out of the city from the city lord's residence, Jiang Qin said softly. Even if everyone here leaves, what about the others in the city? Kid, you're committing a sin, Li Yuan said in a low voice. If the heavenly tribulation destroys the heavenly barren city and all the living beings in the city, do you know how heavy your sin will be? I know, Jiang Qin said innocently, but I don't want to so. You can only help me. Are we going to help or not? If we don't help, the entire heavenly barren city will be gone. At this moment, the leaders of various sects, clans, and forces were gathered together to discuss. Help first. The heavenly barren city has been standing since ancient times. There are too many things hidden here. The heavenly barren city is the symbol of the barren state. It can't collapse just like that. There are many living beings in the heavenly barren city. If all of them die, it'll be a great sin. How can we not help? Those brats of mine haven't escaped from the heavenly barren city yet. The big shots had dark expressions. In the end, they had to agree to help Jiang Qin transcend the tribulation. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan didn't leave. Obviously, they were going to help Jiang Qin transcend the tribulation. They couldn't help it. They couldn't watch the heavenly barren city be destroyed. Nor could they watch the living beings in the city be killed by the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Backdoor Duanjia. Alternate world. At this moment, a man in a black robe made a series of hand seals with both hands. Runes shone brightly like stars. The runes jumped and gathered, finally turning into a huge formation that covered the entire heavenly barren city. This was a secret technique of the Empress's family. The alternate world could transport all kinds of energy, materials, and even living beings into an alternate world. Heaven origin mystical gate. Rock, earth, wind, and sand. Then another person made a move. It was one of the mystical gate, Duanjia. In an instant, huge rocks appeared out of thin air in the sky. A layer of wind and sand gathered in the sky like a dark cloud, blocking the sky above the heavenly barren city. Following that, many people started to cast all kinds of weapons, armors, formations, restrictive spells, and spirit barriers at the same time. Ho Tao also made a move. The sky-measuring ruler in his hand rose into the sky and enlarged rapidly. Like a stabilizing needle, it stopped between the tribulation cloud and the heavenly barren city. Li Yuan made a hand seal with both hands. A sage's decree rose from his body. The power of the sage turned into divine light and enhanced the rocks and sand. Elder Qing, why don't you make a move? That's your disciple. Old man, why are you standing there? A few seconds later, a few people saw Elder Qing standing on the side. He didn't move at all. How can I move? Someone fought with me yesterday, and I'm already injured. I can't even move a finger now, Elder Qing said grumpily and looked at Ho Tao meaningfully. Humph! Ho Tao snorted and didn't say anything. He made another hand seal. This time, the city defense array of the heavenly desolate city rose, along with thousands of restrictive spells and dozens of enchantments. With all kinds of enhancements, the heavenly barren city was like a fortress. It was more like an indestructible rock. However, there was one thing that needed to be emphasized. Jiang Qin didn't have any enhancements on him. Hey, if I can't pass the tribulation, you guys won't have it easy either. Jiang Qin said in a low voice, Quick, give me some enhancements. Who do you think you are? If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have to take the risk here and endure the 9 destruction tribulation. You can die. We just need to protect the heavenly barren city and the living beings in the city. As for you, you can die on your own." The leaders of some sects and schools shouted in anger. When they looked towards Jiang Chun, they were gnashing their teeth in anger, as if they wished they could swallow him alive. "Even if I die, I'll drag a few of you down with me." Jiang Chun was also angry. He knew that with his strength, even if he used a forbidden technique, it would be difficult for him to pass the 9 destruction tribulation. If that was the case, then let's die together. After all, a few people here were his enemies. It was not bad to take revenge before death. Chapter 283. Then let's die together. Jiang Chun was ruthless and formed 6 lightning guiding talismans in succession. "Don't! Let's talk nicely. Fellow Taoist. Stop. Little brother. Brother, take it easy. We'll help you, okay?" In an instant, the group of people panicked. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan trembled. There was already a 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. If Jiang Chun attracted 6 more heavenly tribulations, then not to mention Tianwang City, even the few of them would die here. "Are you helping or not?" Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. As he spoke, he formed another 6 lightning guiding talismans. At this moment, the group of people was completely speechless. Without another word, they took out all kinds of defensive armors and threw them in front of Jiang Chun. There were also people who set up array formations and used secret techniques to augment Jiang Chun's body. In just a few breaths, Jiang Chun's entire body shone with divine light. That was countless array formations and restrictions on his body. That was the brilliance of countless armors. "To be honest, I'm still a little weak," Jiang Chun muttered. "Very few people have transcended the 9 destruction, heavenly tribulation since ancient times. You guys only augment me so little." With that, Jiang Chun formed 18 lightning guiding talismans again. "Brat, apart from the lightning guiding talismans, can you form anything else?" F***CK. Lightning guiding talismans again. The group of big shots was dumbfounded, their foreheads covered in cold sweat. One had to know that it was very difficult for ordinary people, even 9-star talisman masters, to form lightning guiding talismans. After all, these were talismans that could attract heavenly tribulation. Even if they could form them, it was impossible to form so many at once. A single lightning guiding talisman required a large amount of spirit energy. For ordinary people, forming 2 at once was already the limit. "I also know many talismans," Jiang Chun said softly. His hands formed seals one after another, and a talisman flickering with lightning took shape. At this moment, the group of people completely broke down, because this talisman that Jiang Chun formed was a heavenly wrath talisman. Everyone knew that the power of heavenly retribution was much stronger than heavenly tribulation. "Do you want a few more?" Jiang Chun asked. "No. Enough. Hurry up and dispel the talisman. I'll help you, okay?" The group was terrified. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan were dumbfounded. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble a few times. The 9 destruction heavenly tribulation, together with so many lightning summoning runes and a few more heavenly punishments, would probably destroy everything within 1,000 square kilometers, not just the heavenly desolate city. Wind Empress Chi Min, aged metal war god armor. Ho Tao's face darkened as he reluctantly put on a layer of pure gold armor for Jiang Chun. Soon after, Li Yuan appeared. His hands danced in front of him, and a Taiji diagram actually manifested. The yin and yang Tai Chi reversed. It was like a millstone, floating above Jiang Chun's head. Following that, dozens of formations and barriers rose around Jiang Chun. There were even several bottles of spirit pills and miraculous medicines that were delivered to Jiang Chun. "Little brother, don't die. Everything can be discussed after transcending this 9 destruction, heavenly tribulation. Stop fooling around, transcend the 9 destruction, heavenly tribulation in peace. Hurry up and dispel the other talismans. It's scary just looking at them." The group of people's faces were dark, and their tones were weaker. It could be said that they were begging Jiang Chun. Since you all said so, then I'll give you all face, Jiangchen said with a smile. Boom! Just as his voice fell, one nine-colored lightning after another descended from the nine-colored tribulation cloud. 9 bolts of lightning descended at once, as if 9 different colored true dragons. In an instant, the sky changed color, and the ground was shaking. In fact, the buildings in the heavenly desolate city were collapsing continuously under such power. Fortunately, everyone joined forces and stabilized the impact of the heavenly tribulation. As for Jiang Chun, he was even more relaxed at this moment. He just stood there and allowed the heavenly tribulation to strike his body. He did not move at all, nor was he hurt at all. Everyone, thank you for your hard work, Jiang Chun said with a smile. With so many protections around him, the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation could not hurt him at all. As for Ho Tao and the others, they had their own means and were not implicated by the heavenly tribulation. As a result, the people in the city could only see 9 colors in the sky, as if fireworks were blooming. Daddy, look at the fireworks in the sky. It's so beautiful. A pink little girl stood under the eaves of her house, her eyes shining brightly. Yes, the heavenly desolate city has not been so lively in a long time. It's so beautiful. A group of people who did not know what was going on stood on the street and looked up to admire the brilliant fireworks. Although the fireworks were brilliant, Ho Tao and the others suffered. That was because the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation was too terrifying. They had no idea how many layers of the formations and barriers in the heavenly desolate city had been shattered. Helpless, they could only continue to form hand seals, set up formations, and strengthen the barriers and formations. Half an hour later, the group of big shots were covered in sweat, and their bodies were weak. The spiritual energy in their bodies was almost depleted. Even the saint's decree that Li Yuan took out was almost destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. After another half an hour, someone could not hold on any longer and asked, "You haven't gone through the tribulation yet?" "Soon," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "This is the 3rd heavenly tribulation. You'll be fine after having some fun." "What? It's already the 3rd heavenly tribulation?" At this moment, the group of people was dumbfounded. Then they understood. They were wondering why a 9 destruction heavenly tribulation would last so long. It turned out that this was already the 3rd King 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. "Everyone, come on, it's almost over." Jiang Chen stood in the air with a relaxed expression and cheered everyone on. "Wait for the heavenly tribulation. I'll cripple you." Someone roared. The spiritual energy in his body was exhausted, and his face was pale as he fell from the sky. Immediately after, many people could not hold on anymore. Some fainted while others sprawled on the ground, unable to even move a finger. After all, this group of people fought with their lives on the line against the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. At this moment, apart from Li Yuan and Ho Tao, the others could not move. Their spiritual energy was exhausted. "Brat, you're not done yet." After more than 10 breaths, Ho Tao roared and his body trembled. Clearly, his spiritual energy was almost exhausted. Buzz! At the same time, Li Yuan's saint's decree shattered and turned into a misty rain that dissipated in the air. "It's over." At this moment, Jiang Chen shouted softly and saw that the tribulation cloud above his head had already disappeared. This time, he transcended 3 9 destruction heavenly tribulations in one go and successfully condensed his second spirit. And his Tao seed had even reached stage 9. After transcending the heavenly tribulation, Jiang Chun did not stop at all. He rushed to Elder Qing's side and licked his face, asking with a smile, "Elder Qing, you'll protect me, right?" Elder Qing glanced at Jiang Chun speechlessly. Without another word, he grabbed Jiang Chen's shoulder and flew out of the city rapidly. Elder Qing was very clear that after what Jiang Chen did, everyone here would probably hate Jiang Chen to death. They probably even had the intention to kill Jiang Chen. As for Elder Qing, it was impossible for him to stop so many people by himself. Right now, they could only retreat first. Ho Tao and the others naturally wanted to chase after them. However, they had exhausted too much spirit energy previously and could not catch up to Elder Qing at all. "Brat, you're dead meat," Ho Tao said coldly. However, Li Yuan frowned and said, "The Pavilion Master said that if he's willing to nod his head and join Heaven and Earth Pavilion, the Pavilion Master will take him in as a personal disciple." Heaven and Earth Pavilion's Pavilion Master? Ho Tao was shocked. If that was the case, then Jiang Chun really could not be touched casually. "Thank you, everyone." At the same time, Jiang Chen's voice came from outside the city with a mocking tone. Chapter 284. The Young Desolate Association had been a good one, but Jiang Chun had ruined it completely. The group of big shots almost collapsed. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan were trembling all over, their spiritual energy depleted. The contestants witnessed everything with their own eyes. They were afraid that Jiang Chun would use the lightning guiding talisman to deal with them. The competition will continue as usual. Half a day later, Ho Tao and Li Yuan finished resting and announced the continuation of the competition. At the same time, they sent people out of the city to ask Elder Qing to bring Jiang Chun back. They also promised not to pursue the matter. "Elder Qing, will they really let me go?" Outside the heavenly desolate city, Jiang Chun looked worried. Beside him, Old Qing had an indifferent expression as he smiled and said, "It's impossible for them to let you off. The relationship between you and the Martial Pavilion has always been irreconcilable. Even without today's incident, the Martial Pavilion would not let you off." "Then, I won't go to Tianwang City," Jiang Chun said. Given Ho Tao's strength, even Elder Qing couldn't stop him if he wanted to attack Jiang Chun. If he went back now, it would be like sending a lamb to the tiger's den. However, Elder Qing shook his head and smiled. "It's fine. Don't worry about a mere Ho Tao." "Oh." Jiang Chun was surprised. Looking at Elder Qing's calm and confident expression, he couldn't help but smile. He knew that since Elder Qing was so confident, someone from the Billowing Waves Academy must have come. In that case, who would be able to come to this place at this very moment? Apart from Ancestor Qing, no one else could. After a dozen breaths, when Elder Qing and Jiang Chun returned to the City Lord's Manor, the competition had already ended. After all, the previous battle was already nearing its end. Now it was just the end. After this battle, the top 26 would be decided. I should have entered the top 10. No, I should have entered the top 3. Huang Jiuchong didn't leave. He stood on the spectator stand with a terrible expression. He didn't expect to lose to Jiang Chun. Even everyone in the Young Desolation meeting didn't expect it, let alone Huang Jiuchong. "Jiang Chun, you're dead. You almost destroyed the heavenly desolate city and almost implicated us in the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Do you know how many people you've offended?" Someone shouted angrily, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. "When the Young Desolate Convention is over, I'll teach you a good lesson. So what if you are from the Wave Academy? Let's see who can protect you." At this moment, the upper echelons of various sects and family forces were shouting furiously. They were truly enraged. If it weren't for the fact that a group of big shots had joined forces to resist the 9 destructions heavenly tribulation, most of them would have died in it. Even the disciples of their sects would all perish in battle. "So, you're blaming me?" Jiang Chun snapped. "If Huang Jiuchong didn't mock me, would I have made a move? If I don't make a move, will the heavenly tribulation descend? How can you blame me for this? If you want to blame someone, blame a 9th layer emperor." When these words came out, the expressions of the group of people could not help becoming strange. Some people felt that what Jiang Chun said was very reasonable, but some people didn't think so. However, one thing was for sure. This group of people, including Ho Tao, did not dare to blame a 9th layer emperor. After all, Huang Jiuchong was the prince of the humanoid dragon tribe. He was the prince. Blame him? Yeah. Wouldn't that be blaming the entire humanoid dragon tribe? Blame the future emperor of the humanoid dragon tribe. It's my fault? However, to everyone's surprise, Huang Jiuchong spoke up and took the blame. He still looked arrogant, but his expression was solemn as he said, "If I knew that he had a heavenly tribulation, I wouldn't have mocked him, and I wouldn't have let the 9 destructions heavenly tribulation descend on Tianhuang City." What's going on? Has Huang Jiucheng's personality changed? Huang Jiucheng, are you scared of him? Are you helping Jiang Chun take the blame? Many people shouted. I, Huang Jiucheng, dare to take responsibility for my actions. I can be arrogant, and I can let it go. Huang Jiucheng raised his eyebrows and looked at the people who were questioning and shouting at him. He raised his eyebrows and said, "What? Can I, Huang Jiucheng? Do you think I can't do it?" As soon as he said that, the group of people immediately shut up. At the same time, Pang Ming, who was standing next to Huang Jiucheng, took a step forward. The smile on his face disappeared, and he squinted his eyes and said coldly, "Whatever my prince says goes. It's fine if you don't understand, but if you do, you'll have to ask if the humanoid dragon tribe agrees to it." Damn it, you're bullying us. F***CK. Do you think the humanoid dragon tribe is so great? Stop talking. The humanoid dragon tribe is so great that we can't afford to offend them. Everyone cursed in their hearts, but no one dared to say a word. At this moment, Ho Tao announced that they would rest for half a day so that the remaining participants could recuperate. Half an hour later, while everyone was recuperating, a bridge made of starlight crossed the sky from the other side of the sky to the city governor's mansion. Then, a boy in a green Taoist robe slowly walked on the bridge. He walked slowly, but he was very fast. In just 3 breaths' time, he walked from the sky to the sky above the city governor's mansion. The wasteland role has been decided. The boy ignored everyone and waved his hand. A silk book hung in the sky. The silk book was enlarged rapidly, and the divine light and light were dazzling. Names were listed on it. The first place is Tian Shui from the Sifong Divine Institute. No way. The second place is Morning Wine. The third place is Dao Gui. At this moment, the entire place was in an uproar. This was because many geniuses who were favored did not make it into the top 10 of the Wasteland Roll. Moreover, none of the disciples from the Martial Pavilion and the Heaven and Earth Pavilion made it into the top 10 of the Wasteland Roll. Moreover, the Sifong Divine Institute, which was ranked last among the top 10 academies, made it into the top 10. At the same time, Mu Xingyun from the Burning Sky Academy was ranked 4th. Mu Xingyun is here. Jiang Chun looked at the roll, and his heart tightened. To be honest, Jiang Chun was not afraid of the powerful seniors. After all, Elder Qing and the others were there to protect him. However, he was wary of Mu Xingyun. Mu Xingyun was proficient in the art of assassination and possessed the Shadow Dao spirit. He was born to be the king of assassins. Moreover, Jiang Chun and Mu Xingyun were enemies who would fight to the death. Now Mu Xingyun was here, but Jiang Chun could not find him. Jiang Chun was worried that Mu Xingyun would plot against him. Impossible! How can I be ranked 11th? Huang Jiucheng was furious. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the Wasteland Roll. His name was on the 11th place of the Wasteland Roll. To an ordinary person, it was a great honor to be on the Wasteland Roll. To be in the top 50 or 30 was enough to be proud of one's generation. However, to Huang Jiucheng, it was a disgrace to not be in the top 10. What does that mean? Suddenly, someone was puzzled. He pointed at the 10th place on the Wasteland Roll and asked, "Boy, what does that mean?" "I'm not sure. The Heavenly Master made a draft of the Wasteland Roll. How would I know what it means?" The boy shook his head. He was only there to announce the Wasteland Roll. Chapter 285. At that moment, Jiang Chun was also confused. He looked at his name on the 10th position of the Desolation Board. However, there was a question mark behind his name. Each of the 100 people on the Desolate list had a name, but Jiang Chun's name had a question mark behind it. What? Are you doubting this divine king's strength? Since the Desolation Board is out, there is no need to continue the competition. Ho Tao frowned and was confused. This was because the previous Desolation Board was released after the Young Desolation meeting. Furthermore, it was released by the Celestial Master of the Tianji Pavilion. However, This time, before the Young Desolation meeting ended, the celestial master of the Tianji Pavilion released the Desolation Board. Could it be that there was a hidden reason behind this? I am not convinced. I am not convinced either. At that moment, a few geniuses stood out and looked at the rankings on the Desolation Board. Anger flashed in their eyes. All geniuses and demons had their own pride and confidence. When their results did not meet their expectations, they would naturally explode. These geniuses had powerful sects behind them. Naturally, they had the confidence to express their dissatisfaction. What's there to be dissatisfied about? Ho Tao said coldly. Are you not convinced that we are hosting the Young Desolation meeting? Or are you not convinced that the Desolation Board released by the Celestial Master of the Tianji Pavilion? As soon as he said that, the dissatisfied youths were speechless. They returned to their elders. This was because everyone knew that Ho Tao rarely got angry. He rarely spoke to others in such a tone. Furthermore, disagreeing with Ho Tao meant disagreeing with the Martial Pavilion. Who would dare to do so? Other than that, no one dared to disobey the Tianji Pavilion. The Tianji Pavilion was an ancient and mysterious inheritance. It was said that the Tianji Pavilion could predict all the heavenly secrets in the world. They could peek into the mysteries of the Great Way. They were unfathomable. Furthermore, the Tianji Pavilion had an extremely high status and prestige in the entire godless continent. As such, who dared to disobey? Only a few dared to stand out and say that they were not convinced. Look at their elders. Who dared to say anything? With the Desolation Board out, the Young Desolation meeting ended. Some were happy, while others were sad. Of course, those who made it into the top 100 were the true geniuses of the Barren State. Furthermore, they could all enter the Desolate God's dojo. As for Jiang Chun, he was already very satisfied. After all, from the very beginning, Jiang Chun knew that it would be very difficult for him to become the champion. His cultivation was too low. Without using forbidden techniques, it was impossible to defeat those elite sky prides. Long Dade was the main reason he had defeated Huang Jiuzhong. If Long Dade hadn't scared off the Triceratops, Jiang Chun probably wouldn't have been able to defeat Huang Jiuzhong. After all, the higher one's cultivation was, the more obvious the difference between each level would be. With Jiang Chun's venerable realm cultivation, it was really difficult for him to fight against those top heaven realm geniuses. However, the premise was that Jiang Chun didn't want to risk his life. If they fought with their lives on the line, it would be hard to say. Just as I guessed, Tianxue will be ranked first. Jiang Chun spoke in a light voice. He had long expected this result. At the same time, Jiang Chun was also very curious as to how the old heavenly master of the Divination Pavilion had deduced this result. Jiang Chun knew that Tianxue had the guidance of the Empress, which was why he was so sure that Tianxue would become the champion. And what did the old heavenly master of the Divination Pavilion rely on? Those in the top 100 will stay in Tianhuang City. 3 days later, at the Desolation God's training ground, Ho Tao said. After he finished speaking, half of the people in the governor's mansion had left. After all, most of them didn't make it into the top 100. There was nothing for them to do if they stayed. However, there were still quite a few people who stayed. All of them had a strange look on their faces. It was as if they had realized that something was about to happen. Aren't we leaving? Jiang Chun asked. Aren't we going back to the inn? We can't leave. Elder Qing said softly. The Martial Pavilion is about to make a move. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely terrifying aura exploded from Ho Tao's body. A ray of mysterious light descended from the sky and poured onto his body. There seemed to be scriptures flickering in the mysterious light. There was also an ancient and obscure chanting sound. This was the light of a sage. And Ho Tao was a sage realm expert. 10 Ghost successor. The Desolation Gathering is over. It's time for you to be on your way, Ho Tao said coldly. He looked at Jiang Lu, who had disguised himself in the crowd. He raised his hand and slashed out a ray of light. Everyone below a sage was an ant. The power of a sage could destroy mountains and rivers with a drop of blood and cut the sun and moon with a strand of hair. When a sage was angry, millions of corpses would fall, and blood and bones would form mountains. Zhonglu also knew about the power of a sage. Therefore, when he saw the ray of light shooting towards him, he didn't resist at all. However, just as the ray of light was about to land on Zhonglu, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of Zhonglu. Bang! In the next moment, accompanied by a muffled sound, the ray of light shattered 3 inches in front of the man and turned into nothingness. At the same time, the man raised his head with a smile. He looked at Ho Tao in the air and said, "Deputy Pavilion Master Ho Tao, long time no see. It's really you, the samurai ghost." Ho Tao's eyes narrowed, and his expression was extremely solemn. "That's one of the 10 ghosts, the samurai ghost?" Jiangchen asked. "Yes, the samurai ghost." Elder Qing nodded. "The pinnacle of martial arts, a martial sage. The samurai ghost. Today, this desolation city will be your burial place." Li Yuan raised his eyebrows. It was obvious that he was on the martial pavilion's side. However, right after he said those words, a white-haired woman appeared out of thin air like a celestial being. She gracefully landed beside the samurai. "One of the 10 ghosts, Shu Ghost. Shu Ghost is here too." At this moment, everyone exclaimed, and their hearts trembled with fear. The 10 ghosts were existences that stood at the peak of the sage realm. Today, 2 of them had appeared at once. "Fight! We're not afraid of you," Li Yuan shouted and looked at Shu Ghost. "I've long heard that Shu Ghost spells are unparalleled in the world and are known as the #1 spell among the sages. Today, I, Li Yuan, would like to challenge you." "Yo, little brother, you're not worthy to fight with me," Shu Ghost said with a smile, looking a little licentious. However, everyone knew that Shu Ghost was the most ferocious among the 10 ghosts. She killed without batting an eyelid. Her pair of hands that looked like water were stained with endless blood. Today is really lively. At this moment, a black shadow appeared beside Ho Tao. This person was surrounded by a layer of black mist, and there was a burst of cold, killing intent. His eyes were like an eagle's. After glancing at the samurai ghost and Shu Ghost, his gaze fell on Jiangchen. "Then, let's settle this together today," the black shadow said. "The other vice pavilion master of the martial pavilion, Shadowless. Killing sage, Shadowless. Oh my God! 2 of the vice pavilion masters of the martial pavilion have appeared today," everyone exclaimed, and they secretly thought that this desolation city would be overturned today. After all, there were already 5 sages. Moreover, they were all top-notch sages. Chapter 286. Under the glittering, jewel-seeking heaven of the martial pavilion, there were countless deputy pavilion masters, but every one of them was a saint. There were even rumors that a few deputy pavilion masters were powerful enough to challenge the world and were about to become gods. Now, 2 deputy pavilion masters had arrived at the martial pavilion headquarters. At the same time, 2 of the 10 ghosts had arrived. It seemed that today's incident was going to stir up the barren state. "How long has it been since the barren state was so lively?" Elder Qing said softly. He looked up at Zhu Ying and smiled. "Junior brother Zhu Ying, long time no see. Can we have a spar?" "What? Junior brother? Elder Qing's junior brother? Could it be he's Ancestor Qing's last disciple?" At this moment, everyone was shocked. No one had expected Zhu Ying to have such an identity. The world only knew the deputy pavilion master of the martial pavilion, Saint Killing Zhu Ying, but no one knew who his master was or what his name was. But now, with Elder Qing's words, Zhu Ying's identity was revealed. Someone recalled something. Back then, there was a son of the Qing Kong clan who was expelled from the clan. It was rumored that the person who was expelled was killed by Ancestor Qing himself. But who would have thought that the person who was expelled not only did not die, but also became a saint-killing saint and the deputy pavilion master of the martial pavilion? "Qing Kong, my good senior brother, my good brother." Zhu Ying's voice was mixed with complicated emotions, but as he spoke, his voice became colder and colder. I should have crippled you, you traitor, back then. Qin Kong, I was also agitated. He glared at Zhu Ying angrily. You killed your father and your son. Is there anyone in this world that you don't dare to kill? Kill those who should be killed. This is my Tao, Zhu Ying said coldly. Moreover, the Qin Kong clan did not agree with the trend and refused to submit to the martial pavilion. If this continues, the Qin Kong clan will be destroyed sooner or later. My choice was only to give the Qin Kong clan a chance to live. What wrong have I done? Zhu Ying almost roared. However, Elder Qing did not want to say anything more. He rose into the air and went straight into the clouds. Zhu Ying followed closely behind. Within a few breaths, there were explosions in the air. At the same time, Ho Tao formed a hand seal, and a barrier in a ray formation erupted, trapping Jiang Chun in place. Jiang Chun was completely powerless against the sage's barrier in a ray formation. It was not that he did not know how to break it, but Jiang Chun's strength was not enough to fight against the sage. Just you wait. After I deal with these two ghosts, I'll come and kill you, Ho Tao said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed into the clouds. The samurai didn't say anything else. Instead, he rushed towards Ho Tao. Next, Elder Ghost and Li Yuan both made their moves and also rushed into the clouds. They didn't fight in the heavenly desolate city because they knew that as saints, if they fought in the heavenly desolate city, all the creatures in the city would be killed by the aftershocks. Boss! Master! At this time, Jiang Liu, Bai Fengyu, and the rest rushed to Jiang Chen's side. Their eyes were filled with worry. However, Jiang Chen was calm. He sat on the ground and said with a smile, as long as Elder Qing doesn't die, I won't die. But you're trapped here. If the martial pavilion sends more experts here, who will block them for you? Jiang Liu said worriedly. Only 2 of the 10 ghosts came. Now, they're fighting fiercely with Li Yuan and Ho Tao. They can't help you. In this world, there's nothing that I, Bai Jianye, can't help. Suddenly, a loud voice came from afar. Within a few breaths, Bai Fengyu's grandfather, Bai Jianye, arrived here. Without saying anything, he raised his hand and was about to break the barrier in a ray formation on Jiang Chun. Whoosh! However, before his hand landed, a sword ray pierced through the air and went straight for the back of Bai Jianye's head. Who's that? Bai Jianye reacted quickly and threw a punch behind him. Before he could break the array and barrier for Jiang Chun, he rushed toward the southwest direction. One of the 10 halls, the Hall Master of Yama Hall, King of Hell. In the southwest direction, King of Hell's voice came, followed by Ji Chongyang's voice. Grandpa! Bai Fengyu was shocked, and tears appeared in her eyes. Everyone knew that Bai Jianye was the previous city governor of White Emperor City and was extremely powerful. However, they didn't know that Bai Jianye had been seriously injured and his cultivation was no longer at its peak. Bai Jianye's current strength was not even at the Sage Realm. King of Hell and Ji Chongyang were both palace masters of the Martial Pavilion's 10 halls. When the 2 of them joined forces, they were invincible below the Sage Realm. If that was the case, Bai Jianye's fate would most likely be grim. However, Bai Jianye still went. This was because Jiang Chun had turned Bai Fengyu's Yin energy into Yin energy and saved her life. Now, this old man knew that this trip was dangerous, but he still came. He was here to repay his life. Martial Pavilion's first minister, Sun Yin. Martial Pavilion's second minister, Su Bing. At this moment, 2 more voices came from afar. Then, a man and a woman flew across the sky and landed in Tianwang City. Su Bing and Sun Yin, 2 sages, the 2 most powerful ministers of the Martial Pavilion. At this moment, everyone in Tianwang City was shocked. They thought that the appearance of 5 sages was already the limit and would be enough to turn the barren state upside down. However, who would have thought that 2 more sages would come? I'm Qin Kong. May I ask if the 2 of you will fight with me? In the sky, above the clouds, Elder Qing roared angrily. He knew that no one below could protect Jiang Chun, so he wanted to fight 3 sages at once. Old man, I'll kill you first. It won't be too late to kill these 2 guys later. Anyway, these 2 guys won't be able to escape. Sun Yin and Su Bing raised their eyebrows and formed a seal to trap Jianglu. Then, they rushed into the clouds. Elder Qing. At this moment, Jiang Chun was anxious. He could no longer stay calm. Although he had seen all kinds of people and experienced all kinds of things in his previous life, his heart was in a mess now. One person, for him, risked his life to fight 3 sages at the age of white hair. How could Jiang Chen's heart not be moved? I'm Qin Kong. If I can't stay young forever, then I'll die. Elder Qing's loud roar came from above the clouds. On the other hand, Jiang Chen's eyes were bloodshot, and his hands were already forming a seal. Jiang Chen couldn't watch Elder Qing die. He decided to use a forbidden art, even if he would die under the wrath of heaven. Kid, I know you've mastered many forbidden arts. Do you think the martial pavilion isn't prepared? However, before Jiang Chun could use the forbidden art, an old man with a walking stick suddenly appeared. He pointed his finger and stabbed the walking stick into the ground. Buzz! Accompanied by a loud buzz, an obscure aura spread out. The surrounding chi of heaven and earth, and even the power in Jiang Chen's body, were sealed. Even the ever-changing heavenly lamp couldn't be used. Absolute suppression of strength, absolute control of the situation. A forbidden art master. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect there to be someone in the martial pavilion. Moreover, it was a sage realm forbidden art master. As long as this taboo practitioner was there, all of Jiang Chen's methods were forbidden. Unless Jiang Chen's cultivation reached the sage realm and could forcefully break through the restriction, Jiang Chen wouldn't be able to move at all. Chapter 287. Bai Jianye came to repay Bai Fengyu's kindness with his life. Emperor Bai came for Bai Fengyu's heart. He knew his daughter's intentions. If Jiang Chen died, Bai Fengyu would not be able to live either. And Bai Fengyu was Emperor Bai's everything. He was willing to become enemies with the martial pavilion to protect that world for his daughter. And that world was Jiang Chen. Emperor Bai, it seems like you have lived long enough, the forbidden art master said coldly. As he blinked his eyes, runes flashed like stars and shot towards Emperor Bai. Let's fight outside the heavens. Emperor Bai did not accept the challenge. He rushed up and crossed the white clouds in the sky, arriving at the heavens beyond the heavens. The forbidden art master did not hesitate. He knew that today's matter had been blown out of proportion. Only battle, only life and death. Boom, boom. Above the clouds, there were continuous explosions. Holy light scattered down, and blood poured down like rain. A drop of a sage's blood could fill the sea. A drop of a sage's blood was like pouring rain. At this moment, the entire Tianhuang city was surrounded by heavy rain. But it was rainbows with divine light. Raindrops could penetrate stone, but it nourished living beings. After all, the essence contained in a drop of a sage's blood was too terrifying. Even an ordinary blade of grass could become a spiritual grass after being bathed in the blood of a saint. It could even gain sentience and become a living creature. The heavens are broken. Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. The clouds in the sky had all scattered. Everyone saw Li Yuan and Xu Gui facing each other. The two of them had not made a move until now. Obviously, they were afraid of each other. On the other side, Qin Kong the First was covered in blood. Half of his body was missing. He looked too miserable. If he was an ordinary person, he would have died long ago. His opponents, Zhu Ying, Su Bing, and Sun Yin, were not any better. Zhu Ying had lost both her arms and a leg. She was relying on her spiritual power to stand. Su Bing's abdomen was pierced, his dantian was half destroyed, and his cultivation was more than half destroyed. Sun Yin was slightly better, but his heart was shattered. However, for a sage, the heart was no longer important. If the heart was shattered, it could be reforged. In ancient times, There were sages who were reborn with a drop of blood. Qing Kong Yi, this is the end of your life, Sun Yin said coldly. The sharp sword in his hand emitted a boundless sword light as it pierced straight towards Elder Qing. There was nothing fancy about this sword move. It was simple, but it was also the most deadly move. Elder Qing stood where he was. At that moment, he looked down at Jiang Chun. His face was covered with blood, but the corners of his mouth were curled up slightly. There was reluctance and expectation in his eyes. It was as if he was bidding farewell to Jiang Chun. No, Elder Qing. Jiang Chen's eyes were bloodshot as he watched the sword beam land in front of Elder Qing. However, in the next moment, that sword ray suddenly disappeared. At the same time, a young man was striding over from the horizon in the direction of the Surge Academy. His entire body flickered with divine light. When he walked, he was like a giant sun. Stars flickered and coiled around him, while the ancient and obscure chanting of scriptures resounded in the surroundings. I am Qing Kong Confucian of the Qing Kong clan. Please enlighten me. The young man spoke softly. His voice was refined, like that of a scholar. His speed was very slow. It took him a full 30 breaths to walk from the horizon to the sky above Tianhuang City. And for a sage, the ends of the world were just a blink of an eye. However, in these 30 breaths, Zhu Ying, Su Bing, and Sun Yin didn't dare to move at all. Their bodies were trembling, and their pupils were constricted. Their eyes were filled with fear, especially Zhu Ying. When he saw Qing Kong Confucian, his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He couldn't hold on any longer and was about to kneel on the ground. Patriarch, the pillar of the Surge Academy, the patriarch of the Qing Kong clan, Qing Kong Confucian. This old man is still alive. The legendary figure of the barren state. Exclamations and clamors shook the sky. There were even people who retreated, afraid of being involved in this battle. There were even people who soared into the sky and fled thousands of miles away. Everyone knows that Qing Kong Confucian is like a scholar, but they don't know that a scholar hides a murderous heart. Someone sighed. They remembered that when Qing Kong Confucian dominated the barren state, he was the famous blood-hand scholar. His reputation was built on his path of fighting. He killed his way out. It was also because of Qing Kong Confucian that the Qing Kong clan could survive until now. It was also because of Qing Kong Confucian that the Qing Kong clan dared to challenge any sect, any force, or family. Back then, I expelled you but spared your life. I thought you would repent, but I didn't expect you to sink deeper and deeper. At this moment, Qing Kong Confucian came to Elder Qing's side, but his eyes were fixed on Zhu Ying. Now, since you don't repent, there is no place for you in this world, Qing Kong Confucian said softly. The blue sky Confucian scholar whispered. As his eyes opened and closed, the space around Zhu Ying cracked like a mirror, shattering into pieces. Even Zhu Ying's physical body collapsed, and his soul and divine soul exploded. Bang! With a muffled sound, Zhu Ying died completely like a cluster of gorgeous fireworks. The killing saint of a generation, the Martial Pavilion's deputy pavilion master, had fallen. Don't talk to me about Lin Lang Wentian. At this moment, Qing Kong Confucian looked at Su Bing and Sun Yin. As if he knew what they would say, he spoke first. Lin Lang Wentian is in the 9th Forbidden Land and can't even protect himself. And the Martial Pavilion still dares to do this without Lin Lang Wentian? When these words came out, Su Bing and Sun Yin trembled even more violently. It was because, just as Qing Kong Confucian said, the Martial Pavilion's strongest person, Lin Lang Wentian, was in the 9th Forbidden Land and couldn't even protect himself. Whether he could come out alive was a problem. With Qing Kong Confucian's strength, unless a few grand elders of the Martial Pavilion took action, no one in the Martial Pavilion could compete with Qing Kong Confucian. After a moment of silence, Sun Yin gathered his courage and asked, "May I ask, why must you protect him?" "Then let me ask, why must the dignified Martial Pavilion kill him?" Qing Kong Confucian asked. Hearing this, Sun Yin was stunned and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Thinking about it carefully, The Martial Pavilion seemed to want to kill Jiang Chen only because Jiang Chen had crippled one of Linlang Wentian's illegitimate sons. It was just a small matter, but now it had caused the saint to come out and fight. If Linlang Wentian was here, he wouldn't have done this, Qin Kong Confucian said. Go back. From now on, there will be no martial pavilion in the barren state. Senior, what do you mean? Sun Yin asked. Since I've come out, the Qin Kong clan has no way out. From now on, in the barren state, other than the 10 great academies, the Qin Kong clan will have the final say, Qin Kong Confucian said. As for the martial pavilion, it will be removed from the barren state. Chapter 288. The appearance of the blue sky Confucian scholar represented a kind of attitude. He did not need to make a move because no one present was his match. He only needed to express his intentions, and his intentions did not need anyone's approval. He only cared about himself and the Blue Sky clan. Remove the martial pavilion from the barren state? Ancestor Qing, I'm afraid you can't do that, right? Sun Yin said in a low voice. We can't make the decision on this matter, but if Ancestor Qing insists, the Grand Elders of the Martial Pavilion will definitely not sit idly by. I'm invincible below the immortal realm. 1 for 1 above the immortal realm, the Blue Sky Confucian scholar said softly. If they want to make a move, then 1 for 1. I dare to trade my life, but do they dare? This, 1 for 1 above the immortal realm? What level has Ancestor Qing's cultivation reached? He's definitely still a saint, but his combat strength has probably surpassed the scope of a saint. Everyone was moved and guessed in their hearts. They wondered if the Grand Elders of the Martial Pavilion would make a move. Go back, all of you. The Blue Sky Confucian scholar waved his hand and looked around. It would be a pity if the beautiful rivers and mountains collapsed. I'm already so old, and I want to see more scenery so that I won't regret it in the future. When Sun Yin and Su Bing heard this, they only silently glanced at the Blue Sky Confucian scholar, then turned and left. Even the people in the distance who were fighting fiercely retreated one after another. Just one person, Annihilation Shadow, and all the saints retreated. I'm invincible below the immortal realm, as expected of Ancestor Qing. After today, the barren state will be unified. At this moment, everyone had a premonition that the barren state would change greatly in the future. The Blue Sky Confucian scholar had appeared, and his combat strength was heaven-defying. He dared to say such words in front of so many people. However, there were also people who thought that although the barren state was the weakest of the 7 states, the 10 great academies were all in the barren state. If the Blue Sky clan wanted to unify the barren state, would the 10 great academies agree? And the Heaven and Earth Pavilion, which was inextricably linked with the Martial Pavilion, would they watch the Martial Pavilion be removed from the barren state? The Blue Sky Confucian scholar is not invincible in the barren state. That's right. From what I know, the Pavilion Master of Heaven and Earth Pavilion has the ability to fight against it. Which dean in the 10 great academies doesn't have such strength? The Blue Sky clan wants to unify the barren state? Dream on. However, at this moment, the Blue Sky Confucian scholar was as calm and tranquil as that scholar. He ignored everyone and didn't even look at Elder Qing. He sighed softly and then disappeared from this place. Bai Jianye and Emperor Bai did not return either. They left directly. The samurai and shaman ghosts returned, but after undoing the formations and barriers on Jiangchun and Jianglu, they left with Jianglu. In the end, only Elder Qing, Jiangchun, and a few others were left. As for the surrounding people, they had already retreated 10,000 miles away the moment the Blue Sky Confucian scholar appeared. Everything is under control. At this moment, Elder Qing was standing on one leg. Half of his body was missing, but he was very calm and confident. He looked like an expert. Jiang Chun was grateful, but he couldn't help but say, "You almost died. Brat, don't you know how to chat?" Elder Qing pretended to be angry and scolded. Then he suddenly laughed and said, "Yes, I almost died. I haven't fought for anyone before. Will there be in the future? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. In the future? Probably, Elder Qing said softly. Do you know what this battle means? Jiang Chen was stunned. He really didn't know what this battle meant. On the surface, it meant that the Blue Sky Clan and the Martial Pavilion had shed all pretense of cordiality. But in reality, Jiang Chen didn't know what the real meaning was. It means the future, Elder Qing said softly. Elder Qing said softly. The future of the Blue Sky Clan depends on you, including the Wave Institute. Depends on me? Jiang Chen was puzzled. Was it so serious? Elder Qing didn't explain anything. After recuperating and rebuilding his body for half a day, he left with Jiang Chen and the others. As for Bai Fengyu, he also left and was escorted to White Sovereign City. At this point, the Young Desolate Meet was considered to have come to an end. But the Young Desolate Meet was over, and the Desolate God training ground was about to open. A huge collision was about to happen, because in the 7 states, the Desolate State had the Young Desolate Meet, and the other states also had similar feasts. And those who could enter the top 100 in such feasts were qualified to enter the Desolate God training ground. This meant that there would be a total of 700 people entering the Desolate God training ground, with 100 people from each state. And these 700 people would be the strongest group of Heaven's Prides in the 7 states. At that time, it would be a true gathering of Heaven's Prides. Qingzu? After returning from Tianhuang City and entering his cave abode, Jiang Chen saw Qingzu. He seemed to have been waiting here for a long time. Jiang Chen, from the Jiang family of Qinchuan. He was the young master of the Jiang family. Later, because of the Jiang family's grand elder usurping power, he was expelled from the Jiang family and exiled to the Chuanzuan sect. After that, he rose to prominence. Am I right? Qingzu said softly. His voice was calm, and there was no trace of emotion. Jiang Chen squinted. His pupils suddenly contracted. He had realized something was wrong. However, Jiang Chen did not say anything and merely nodded. I just can't figure out how a piece of trash rose to prominence. Moreover, the speed of his rise is heaven-defying. Qingzu frowned and said, Perhaps I should go to the Divine Secrets Pavilion and find the old Heavenly Master to divine some things about you. Why do you need to know so much about my matters? This time, Jiang Chen could not remain calm and said in a low voice, Everyone has their own secrets. If you want to know my secrets, you have to pay the price. And this price is something you can't afford. Can't afford? Why can't I afford? Qingzu chuckled and then sighed. For a person who is about to die, what price can I not afford? Jiang Chen frowned and looked at Qingzu, who was like a teenager. He could not believe that Qingzu was about to die. I'm invincible below the immortal state, and I'll exchange one for one above the immortal state. How could such an expert die so easily? I've lived for 6,000 years. My cultivation base is accumulated over time. Qingzu looked at Jiang Chen meaningfully and said, I still remember that 3,000 years ago, there was also a person called Jiang Chen. At that time, I was just a small cultivator, and the Qing Kong clan was not as strong as it is now. What are you trying to say? Jiang Chen's expression froze as he stared at Qingzu. Is the Jiang Chen from 3,000 years ago you? Qingzu asked. This time, a glint appeared in Qingzu's eyes. In his eyes, there were shadows of the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams floating. He was deducing Jiang Chen's past and future. He was peeping at the secrets of heaven. Peeping at the secrets of heaven is a heaven-defying thing. If it's light, you'll be injured. If it's serious, you'll die. Jiang Chen sighed softly. Stop deducing. I'll tell you. Speak. Qingzu said softly. I am Tian Chen. Jiang Chen looked serious and said, Are you satisfied now? Boom! The moment Qingzu said the 2 words, a golden thunderbolt fell from the clear sky and headed straight for Jiang Chen's cave abode. Chapter 289. When Tian Chen fell, the Divine King would change hands. The 2 words Tian Chen were a taboo, and in this world, anyone could say the 2 words Tian Chen. Only Jiang Chun could not. This was a kind of Tao, a kind of rule, a kind of order, and even a kind of law. The soul of a dead person was reborn. It was against the heavenly Tao. Being alive was a kind of taboo. Suppress. At this moment, Qing Kong Confucian scholar shouted softly. With a raise of his hand, a mystic light burst forth, directly dispersing the descending golden lightning. Then, he looked at Jiang Chun and said with a smile, "Okay, how do you know my identity?" Jiang Chun asked. The old heavenly master of the divination pavilion deduced. Qing Kong Confucian scholar said, "In this world, only the old heavenly master of the divination pavilion can deduce your past and future." However, what he saw was only a divine light. The future he saw was a dark one. Your past cannot be seen clearly. Your future is the abyss of hell. Qing Kong Confucian scholar sighed. When Jiang Chun heard this, he could not help but be moved. He could not believe that his identity had been deduced by someone. Then, since one person had asked the old heavenly master to deduce, there would definitely be a second and third. At that time, wouldn't Jiang Chun's identity be made public? At that time, the godless continent would be fine, but what would happen to those gods who were hostile to him in the ninth heaven divine world? At that time, those gods would probably come down from the ninth heaven divine world at all costs and strangle Jiang Chun in the cradle. He's dead. I killed him. At this moment, Qing Kong Confucian scholar smiled faintly and said, "There are some secrets that cannot be revealed. You killed the old heavenly master of the divination pavilion." Jiang Chun exclaimed. He did not expect Qing Kong Confucian scholar to do this. Even if I didn't kill him, he would have died. Qing Kong Confucian scholar said, "I deduced a taboo. If I didn't kill him, he would have died under the wrath of heaven. I'll just send him on his way in advance." When Jiang Chun heard this, he realized that when the people of the martial pavilion had retreated, the blue sky Confucian scholar had also left. In that case, where had the blue sky Confucian scholar gone, and what had he done? The answer was obvious. In that short period of time, the blue sky Confucian scholar had entered the heavenly secrets pavilion and killed the old heavenly master, protecting Jiang Chun's secret. Then, from now on, Jiang Chun's greatest secret would only be known by the blue sky Confucian scholar. "I'll protect you now, and you'll give me a future in the future." The blue sky Confucian scholar coughed gently. Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. He smiled bitterly. "I don't have much time left. Let's see if I can fight for a future for myself and the Blue Sky Clan. What exactly do you want from me?" Jiang Chun asked. Elder Qing had also said that Ancestor Qing was betting everything on him. This was a bet. As for Jiang Chun, what was he going to do in this bet? He did not know. "Become a god before I die," the blue sky Confucian scholar said, "and then prolong my life. As long as I live, the Blue Sky Clan will not be destroyed. And my hope of survival is in you," the blue sky Confucian scholar explained. "I know my own situation. Unless it's divine power, nothing else in this world can save me. That's all." Jiang Chun was stunned. For most people, becoming a god was too difficult. Some people cultivated for 10,000 years and still could not become a god after exhausting their lifespan. There were also people who advanced triumphantly from the start of cultivation, sweeping through their peers and suppressing all, but in the end, they could not become a god. However, becoming a god was a piece of cake for Jiang Chun. Not only had he become a god, but he had also become a divine king. He knew all the obstacles and bottlenecks on the path to becoming a god, and he could smoothly break through them. "This is not difficult for you," the blue sky Confucian scholar said with a smile. "It's precisely because I know that becoming a god is not difficult for you, and that you can become a god in an extremely short period of time, that I bet everything on you." "You bet right," Jiang Chun said softly. "But the prerequisite is that I can live. Unless I die, no one in this world will dare to touch you," the blue sky Confucian scholar said seriously. Then he shook his head and said, "I won't interfere in the battle between the younger generation. I can settle the matters of the same generation myself," Jiang Chun said. "Then I'll look forward to it," the blue sky Confucian scholar said. and then disappeared on the spot. Jiang Chen did not think much. He sat cross-legged and continued to cultivate. Time also slowly passed. During this time, Xiao Qingyi came to find Jiang Chen and told him that he would also enter the desolate god training ground. This surprised Jiang Chen slightly. After all, he did not see Xiao Qingyi at the young desolate meeting. However, when he thought about it carefully, it was normal that he did not see him. After all, there were so many people at the young desolate meeting. Jiang Chen could not see each and every one of them. Wakako left the martial pavilion and the Ruo clan. I don't know where he ran off to now, but the martial pavilion has put him on the wanted list, Xiao Qingyi said. Got it? Jiang Chen nodded. He thought that Wakako would not go anywhere else. After some time, when the news died down, he would probably come to find him. However, Jiang Chen did not expect that the door to the cave abode would be opened as soon as he finished speaking. Wakako was in tatters. His hair was messy, and there were bloodstains on his body. He staggered up to Jiang Chen and said in a weak voice, I've done what I promised you. Now, it's time to fulfill your promise. Jiang Chen had promised Wakako that if he was willing to leave the martial pavilion and follow him, he would help him condense the power of the overlord body and let him become the true overlord body of the firmament. However, Jiang Chen had only said it casually. He did not think that Wakako would betray the martial pavilion and leave the Ruo clan. After all, this was too great a loss for Wakako. The overlord has the overlord body of the firmament, and the overlord body of the firmament requires the power of the overlord. Jiang Chen said softly. He stood up and walked in front of Wakako. However, this overlord body of the firmament needs someone to activate it for you. What do you mean? Wakako asked. If someone is willing to sacrifice a third of their cultivation and imbue it to you, you can become the true overlord body of the firmament. Jiang Chen said. However, in this world, all cultivators value their cultivation more than their lives. How many people are willing to sacrifice their cultivation? Is that so? Wakako frowned and looked at Jiang Chen. He sighed and said, You're not willing either, right? It seems that I've made the wrong choice. Buzz. However, just as Wakako finished speaking, Jiang Chen tapped Wakako's forehead between his eyebrows. In an instant, Wakako felt a pure and strong power pouring into his body from Jiang Chen's fingertip. This power flowed through his limbs and bones, all the way to the depths of his soul. During this period, Wakako's cultivation did not increase at all. However, his body, and even his soul were filled with a layer of purple light. There was also an extremely violent power that exploded from the depths of his soul. It was as if an invisible door had been opened, and the power within the door erupted like a volcano. I'll naturally do what I promised you. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen said softly. His face was slightly pale, and his cultivation had fallen to the lower level of the king realm. Moreover, within a few breaths, Jiang Chen's cultivation fell again and again. Chapter 290. You? Wakako's eyes narrowed. He couldn't believe that Jiang Chen had given him 1/3 of his cultivation just because of a promise. For any cultivator, this was equivalent to cutting their own life. Sometimes words are like needles. They have to pierce into your heart and soul. You have to remember them. Jiang Chen's face was pale. He smiled and said, Okay, you've done what you promised me, and I've done what I promised you. But your cultivation? Wakako's expression was complicated. He didn't know what to say for a moment. On the side, Xiao Qingyi was even more worried. You'll enter the desolate god's dojo in 3 days. In your current situation, you'll be courting death if you go in. Don't worry, I should be able to recover in 3 days. Jiang Chen said weakly. He waved his hand, indicating that they shouldn't disturb him. Then he entered a state of cultivation. Wakako and Xiao Qingyi looked at each other. They didn't go anywhere and sat cross-legged beside Jiang Chen. They knew that Jiang Chen was at his weakest right now. Once someone attacked him, Jiang Chen would die without a doubt. Just like that, Jiang Chen cultivated by himself. Wakako and Xiao Qingyi stood by his side to protect him. The next day, Jiangchen woke up with a smile on his face. Ruo Xiao and Xiao Qingyi didn't even blink. They had been staring at Jiangchen the whole night. This was because in just one night, Jiangchen's cultivation had recovered to the lower level of the king realm. What did you do? Xiao Qingyi was dumbfounded. Did you get carried away? You recovered so quickly in one night. Wakako was also surprised. He stared at Jiangchen, thinking that Jiangchen had gone mad. It's easy to walk the same path again, Jiangchen said with a smile. I've just started cultivating again, so of course my speed will be much faster. Besides, this isn't the second time I've cultivated. This is the third time I've recultivated, Jiangchen muttered to himself. However, it would take at least 6 to 7 days for him to return to his previous cultivation. Right now, Jiangchen's cultivation was like a bucket. Half of the water inside had been poured out, and it needed to be filled up slowly. However, no matter how fast it would still take time. After all, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a wooden bucket of water to fill up the entire vat. We'll be entering the Desolate Gods Dojo the day after tomorrow. Prodigies from all over the world will gather there. The top 100 prodigies from the 7 continents will all meet there. Xiao Qingyi said in a low voice. Can you recover to your peak before the day after tomorrow? No, Jiangchen said with a smile. But aren't you two here? I'm fine, Wakako said directly. The purple light in his eyes dimmed as he said, there are very few people in my generation who can match me. Even if it's the strongest prodigy, as long as their cultivation level isn't higher than mine by 2 levels. I'm about the same. Xiao Qingyi kept a low profile. He scratched his head and said humbly, I've cultivated the 6 paths crafty arts to the 3rd level. I should be able to deal with ordinary prodigies. Jiangchen curled his lip involuntarily. He really wanted to ask Xiao Qingyi, what kind of average geniuses do you mean? Was he talking about those in the 9th level of the Emperor realm? Jiangchen knew very well how powerful the 6 paths crafty arts was. If Xiao Qingyi cultivated the 6 paths crafty arts to the 3rd level, he would be able to fight against those in the 9th level of the Emperor realm. He definitely wouldn't be at a disadvantage. One is domineering and full of confidence. The other is humble and introverted, Jiangchen mumbled. After resting for a while, he started cultivating again. 2 days later, the cycle repeated itself. On this day, Elder Qing came with Dao Gui and Zhao Mujio. When he entered Jiangchen's cave residence and saw Xiao Qingyi and Wakako, he couldn't help but be surprised. Kid, you're really something. 2 fugitives from the martial pavilion are hiding here? Elder Qing had a strange expression. Do you really think the Wave Academy is a shelter? They're already following me. If they don't follow me to the Wave Academy, where else can they go? Jiangchen pursed his lips. This is called different paths lead to the same destination, Zhao Mujio said. Do you know how to use idioms? This is called wallowing in the mire, Dao Gui said. Look, the 3 fugitives are together. Go out and turn left. Get lost. Jiangchen scolded jokingly. He knew Dao Gui didn't mean any harm and was just joking. After that, Elder Qing led the few of them out of the Wave Academy and flew towards the Desolate God training ground. The barren state was huge and was divided into a total of 5 regions. They were the East, West, North, South, and Central regions. For example, Tianhuang City belonged to the Central region, and the Desolate God training ground was in the Northern region. This place was close to the underworld state. It was shrouded in mist and very humid. There were swamps everywhere. As it wasn't suitable for ordinary people to live in, it could be said that there were very few people here. Even birds and beasts weren't willing to step foot here. So many portals? Half a day later, when Jiangchen and the others entered the northern region, they saw portals floating in the sky above the entire northern region. Each portal flickered with divine light and was filled with spatial power. Looking over, there were more than 1,000 portals. The godless continent is vast and boundless. The 7 states are very far apart. If people from other states want to enter this place, it's impossible to fly over. Naturally, they have to use portals, Elder Qing explained. Keep a low profile later. Quietly enter the desolate god training ground, and then quietly seize the good fortune. Don't attract too much attention, Elder Qing reminded. And these words seemed to be directed at Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun chuckled and didn't say anything. He followed Elder Qing all the way and finally arrived in front of an abyss. The abyss spanned tens of thousands of miles. Above it, there was a golden mist rising. Below it, it was pitch black and the bottom couldn't be seen. On both sides of the abyss, there were broken stone pillars. Some ancient words were carved on them that had long been blurred. And the desolate god training ground was under this abyss. A few eras ago, the Barren State was known as the strongest among the 7 states. There was a time when the Barren State suppressed the other 6 states and unified the godless continent, Elder Qing exclaimed, and the person who did all this was the desolate god. The desolate god, a mysterious man that even the ancient books have very few records of. Jiang Chun whispered, the world only knows the title of the desolate god, but they don't know his real name. Even in the 9th heaven divine world, there are very few records of the desolate god. Of course, Jiang Chun didn't say the second half of the sentence out loud. He was just lamenting in his heart. This is a remote place. Can people live in this place? Let's not talk about this place. I think the entire Barren State is not suitable for people to live in. Suddenly, not far away, a few youths spoke. Their words were filled with contempt for the Barren State. Chapter 291. Compared to the Eastern State, the Barren State is a garbage dump. In another direction, a prodigy from the Eastern State pinched his nose and said, even the air here stinks. Everyone, there is no master, and there is no high ground. Everything in the world is equal. Zhao Mu Jiao, the monk, couldn't bear to listen anymore. He was born in Buddhism. Although he had his own path, he also emphasized the equality of all life. Moreover, he was born in the Barren State and was a citizen of the Barren State. Naturally, he couldn't stand others insulting the Barren State. Yo, a country bumpkin, a silly monk. The top 100 prodigies of the Barren State can't even enter the top 500 in the South State. In another direction, a few prodigies from the South State mocked. Why are they all hostile to the Barren State? Jiang Chun was stunned. Why were the people from the other 6 states joining forces to insult the Barren State? Since ancient times, only the Barren State has unified the godless continent. None of the other 6 states have done it, Dao Gui said with a smile. Dao Gui smiled and said, now that the Barren State has declined, the other 6 states will naturally have some sour words to say. Oh! Jiang Chun was relieved. He suddenly remembered that he was also from the Barren State in his previous life, and had also unified the entire godless continent. In Jiang Chun's impression, only the Barren State had unified the godless continent. The other 6 states had never done it even once. Among the 7 states, only the Barren State had unified the godless continent. Although the other states had their glory days, they weren't as glorious as the Barren State. However, now that the Barren State had declined, in the eyes of the world, there wasn't a single godly state expert in the Barren State. In the other states, although there weren't many godly state experts, there were still quite a few. The key to determining the strength of a state was the number of godly state experts. The Barren State had once unified the godless continent and trampled the other 6 states. Now that the Barren State had declined, the other states naturally wouldn't let it go. Mocking and ridiculing was considered light. Sometimes creatures from the Barren State would be provoked and even beaten to death when they went to the other states. As the saying went, a tiger would be bullied by dogs. The Barren State was like that now. The Barren State is too weak. It's not as strong as it used to be. The current generation of geniuses from the Barren State is even more pitifully weak. A genius from the Eastern State sneered, they don't even have the interest to fight you. We've never fought before. It's hard to say who's stronger and who's weaker. A young man from the Barren State retorted. Is that so? The heaven's favorite from the Eastern continent snorted coldly and sent out a palm strike. The palm print was like a rainbow, emitting a dark luster, like a stone tablet from hell. The young man from Barren State narrowed his eyes, and the spirit energy in his body went berserk, causing his blood chi to surge. He formed a seal with both hands and unleashed a lightning-type spell technique. However, when the purple lightning collided with the palm print, the lightning was like a piece of paper and was instantly dispersed. Furthermore, the momentum of the palm print did not diminish. It was like a black dragon as it bombarded the body of the youth from the barren state. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, the young man from the barren state crumbled on the spot. Not even a trace of him remained. What? That's one of the top 100 geniuses of the barren state. How could he be killed in one hit? Is the barren state really that weak? For a moment, the people from the barren state were shocked. Even Jiang Chun was slightly surprised. He did not expect the heaven's favorite from the eastern state to be so powerful. At that moment, the people from the other states mocked and ridiculed one after another. There was even a hint of provocation. The environment of the barren state is changing. It's getting worse by the day. Compared to the other 6 states, the chi of heaven and earth here is thinner. Elder Qing explained, cultivating here for a year is better than cultivating in other states for 3 months. This is the reason why the barren state has declined. The chi of heaven and earth has become thinner? Jiang Qin whispered. He looked up at the sky and thought to himself, we're all in the godless continent. How can only the barren state's chi of heaven and earth have become thinner? There must be a reason behind this. Could it be because the barren state's fortune has been cut off? Suddenly, Jiang Chun thought of something. At the same time, he formed a seal secretly and sent a seal into the ground. The seal was like a pair of eyes that rushed into the endless ground until it arrived at an illusory space that was like Mount Meru. This was the place where the barren state's fortune was located. It was also called the Dragon Vein by the people of the world. It's really been cut off. At that moment, Jiang Chen saw through the seal that the barren state's dragon vein had shattered and turned into tiny particles that were like stars. With the dragon vein severed, the barren state's heaven and earth were incomplete. Without the chi of heaven and earth, how could the barren state not decline? Who is so sinister to actually sever the barren state's chi of heaven and earth? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, but he did not believe it. That was because it was difficult to sever the dragon vein, even after becoming a god. And on the godless continent, the strongest were only experts who had passed the Davis 5 decay. Below them were the deity realm cultivators. And whether it was a deity realm cultivator or an expert who had passed the Davis 5 decay, Jiang Qin was certain that they definitely did not have the strength to sever the chi of heaven and earth. Then, why would the barren state's chi of heaven and earth collapse? When did the barren state begin to decline? Jiang Qin asked. 3,000 years ago. Elder Qing was not very sure either. It seems that ever since Divine King Tian Chun ascended, the barren state began to decline. Some people say that when Divine King Tian Chun ascended, he exhausted the barren state's fortune. Impossible! Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment before he denied it on the spot. What kind of joke was this? He was Divine King Tian Chun. How could he not know about this? Back then, Jiang Chun ascended to become a god with his own strength. It had nothing to do with the barren state's chi of heaven and earth. There's also a legend, but no one believes it. Elder Qing said softly. Legend has it that the barren state's fortune was used to seal a group of demons. A group of demons? Jiang Chun was curious and asked a few more questions. However, Elder Qing could not explain it. At the same time, before the desolate gods' training ground opened, battles had already broken out all around. The prides of the 6 states either mocked or provoked, forcing the people of the barren state to fight. As a result, in just half an hour, 13 of the barren state's top 100 geniuses had died in battle. We're all living beings in the world. Why make things difficult for us? Morning Wine sighed and took a sip of strong wine. He stepped forward, intending to meet the geniuses of the other states. However, before he could make a move, Elder Qing pressed him down with a palm. It's not too late to make a move after we reach the desolate god's training ground, Elder Qing said. If you make a move here, you'll die if you lose. If you win, you'll become the target of everyone. Do as you wish, Morning Wine said softly. Don't stop me. With that, Morning Wine shook off Elder Ching's palm and threw the wine gourd in his hand at a genius from the eastern state. Chapter 292. The wine gourd was like a shooting star, and in the blink of an eye, it hit the young man from the eastern state. The young man reacted quickly. He raised his hand and knocked the wine gourd away. Then, without saying a word, he charged at Xiaomujio. You're asking for it. Stupid monk. How dare you attack? At the same time, the three geniuses from the eastern state charged at Xiaomujio like ferocious beasts. Let me have a go at you, Dao Gui whispered. A Tai Chi floated in front of him. Ancient words flashed above his head. That was the Taoist 9 syllables. Army, Dao Gui shouted and used the army character formula. In an instant, weapons appeared out of thin air. Even the weapons in the hands of the people around him began to vibrate, as if they were out of control and were about to be drawn by the army character formula. The Taoist 9 syllables? Little Taoist, where did you learn it from? A group of people exclaimed. They understood the Taoist 9 syllables at a glance. Some of them even had greed in their eyes. Some of the sect elders had already charged at Dao Gui. No one could remain calm in the face of the Taoist 9 syllables. It was the most powerful cultivation technique and was also regarded as the most powerful martial arts technique. The Taoist 9 syllables had been lost for a long time in the divine world of Jiuxiao. Now, after countless years, the Taoist 9 syllables had reappeared, and it had appeared in the hands of a young man from the barren state, who could remain calm, move at will. At the same time, Xiaomujio's figure became ethereal. His entire body emitted rays of Buddhist light. He walked among the three people. Cold light shot out from his fingers as he kept poking the three people. Like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, the three people's bodies began to tremble. The freedom technique? What a guy! The Taoist 9 syllables, the freedom technique. Which clan are these two disciples from? Two long-lost cultivation techniques have appeared at the same time. Is the barren state going to rise? My two friends, come over here and let me take a look. Treasures arouse the envy of others. At that moment, a few big shots attacked. They ignored Elder Qing and charged towards Dao Gui and Xiaomujio. Their greed was not concealed in the slightest. Many people sneered in their hearts when they saw this scene. There were even some people rushing over from the distance with terrifying auras, as if they were saints. Seal? When Jiangchen saw this, he knew that things were not going well. He formed a series of seals with his hands, and many restrictions and formations appeared. In an instant, a screen of light appeared around Jiangchen and the others. Then, Jiangchen grabbed Dao Gui and morning and evening wine before leaping into the abyss. In the blink of an eye, the three figures disappeared before everyone's eyes. At the same time, beneath the abyss, Dao Gui's slightly smug voice sounded. Goodbye, everyone. You still want to snatch our cultivation technique? If you have the ability, why don't you come and snatch it from the desolate god's dojo? Morning and evening wine mocked. The three figures rapidly fell. At this moment, the group of people near the abyss were dumbfounded. Even Elder Qing was stunned and didn't know what to say. It could even be said that Elder Qing was dumbfounded. The people of the barren state can do this? Suicide? The group was speechless, and their expressions were extremely strange. It was because everyone knew that the desolate god's dojo was beneath the abyss, but one had to use special methods and follow a specific path to enter the dojo. As for Jiangchen and the others, it was impossible to enter the real desolate god's dojo by leaping down. In the past, there were people who jumped down like this, but without exception, none of them returned and died in the abyss. Now, Jiangchen and the others had jumped down just like that. It's my fault. I didn't explain it to them clearly. Elder Qing's expression was terrible. Before coming, he only told Jiangchen and the others that the desolate god's dojo was beneath the abyss, but he did not explain how to enter. Now, Jiangchen and the others had jumped down directly. This was no different from suicide. Damn it! They would rather die than hand over the Taoist 9 syllables and the freedom technique. Which force are these three from? In the abyss, a few sages were shouting angrily. After all, they were so close to getting the 2 great techniques, but they did not expect that the ducks in their mouths would fly away. They are the disciples of my Billow Academy, Elder Qing said coldly. How dare you snatch the techniques of my Billow Academy's disciples in front of me? Are you looking down on my Billow Academy? At this moment, Elder Qing came to his senses, and his face was as black as ink. He was afraid, and he did not know if Jiang Chun and the others were dead or alive. He also did not know how to face Elder Qing when he returned. Since they are the disciples of the Billow Academy, then the freedom technique and the Taoist 9 syllables should also be taught by the Billow Academy, right? What a Billow Academy! It seems like I have to make a trip to the Billow Academy. Many people's eyes flashed with greed, and some even sent messages to their sects to send experts to enter the Billow Academy. They were going to snatch it by force. The Billow Academy does not have the freedom technique and the Taoist 9 syllables, Elder Qing said in a deep voice. However, if you insist, then why don't you give it a try? Not everyone can enter the gate of the Billowing Wave Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely horrifying aura of a sage erupted. Then, Elder Qing, who looked like a scholar, suddenly appeared in the sky. His eyes were extremely cold, and murderous intent surged in his eyes, as if he was an enraged beast. His hair fluttered in the wind, and the air around him was turbulent. Beams of holy light even descended from the sky. If those 3 die, don't even think about living, Elder Qing said coldly. Then, he jumped into the abyss. Elder Qing had bet everything on Jiangchen, so he naturally could not watch Jiangchen die. However, when he jumped into the abyss, he was pushed back by an invisible force. Forbidden force. Elder Qing's eyes narrowed. He tried again, but he still could not enter the abyss. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to us like that? You're just a sage. How dare you challenge us? At this moment, many sages from the other 6 states appeared. These people were very powerful and held high positions. How could they accept Elder Qing's words? All of you deserve to die. Elder Qing was furious. He could not enter the abyss, so he could not know if Jiang Chun and the others were dead or alive. And Jiang Chun was the one who had to bear all of the Azure Ancestors' power. Qing Kong Confucian, forget it. Everything has its own karma. At this moment, an old monk in a tattered kasaya flew over from afar. He was covered in dust and looked nothing special. However, behind him, there was a Buddha's shadow floating up and down. Little India, Grandmaster Mingwei. Grandmaster Mingwei. Exclamations continued to sound from all around. Even the saints with high positions had a hint of fear in their eyes when they saw Grandmaster Mingwei. That was because Grandmaster Mingwei was a Grandmaster Sage. Chapter 293. The Sage Realm was divided into many realms. The lowest level was what ordinary people called the Sage Realm. Above the Sage Realm was the Sage Ruler Realm. Above that was the Supreme Sage Realm. For example, the siblings Su Bing and Su Nian were sages. The Blue Sky Scholar was a sage ruler. Now, Master Mingwei, who had just appeared, was a supreme sage. It was the strongest level in the Sage Realm. Morning and evening wine has its own destiny. At this moment, Master Mingwei slowly walked over to the Blue Sky Scholar's side. He glanced at the abyss again, then formed a Buddhist seal and whispered, "Everything has its own destiny. Master, do these 3 have a way out?" The Blue Sky Scholar asked. Facing Master Mingwei, the Blue Sky Scholar had to be polite. However, anyone who knew about the Blue Sky Confucian Scholar knew that great sages were nothing in front of him. After all, in the Sage Realm, whether it was a sage, sage ruler, or supreme sage, the Blue Sky Scholar was absolutely invincible. He was invincible below the deity realm, and above the deity realm. He would trade 1 for 1. This was the Blue Sky Scholar. Facing such a powerful Blue Sky Scholar, Master Mingwei only shook his head gently and said, "I can't say." "Old thing, what's there to not say?" The Blue Sky Scholar's temper immediately rose. He had called him Master before, but now he had changed it to Old Thing. Master Mingwei didn't care about this and sighed. "Benefactor, I can't say. If I have to say something, I can only say that even the heavens can't take the lives of these 3 people." Hearing Master Mingwei say this, the Blue Sky Scholar's hanging heart was relieved. However, the Blue Sky Scholar was still very worried, because, since ancient times, no one who entered the abyss had ever come out alive. Even if a supreme sage entered the abyss, most of them would die. Previously, the Blue Sky Scholar had been blinded by anger and thought of entering the abyss. Now that he thought about it, the Blue Sky Scholar's forehead was full of cold sweat. When can we reach the bottom? At the same time, in the abyss, Jiang Chun and the other 2 were still falling. From jumping into the abyss until now, the 3 of them had been falling and hadn't reached the bottom yet. This abyss isn't connected to the netherworld, right? Dao Gui asked. "How is that possible?" "There is only one path to the netherworld, and it is not here," Jiang Chun said. "In any case, the 3 of us are the first batch of people to enter the Desolate God's dojo." Morning and evening wine was full of smiles. Little did they know that if they jumped into the abyss, they would not be able to enter the Desolate God's dojo. Even Jiang Chun did not know. He only knew that they had already descended to a depth of tens of thousands of meters. Moreover, he couldn't see the bottom. Floating on the walls of the abyss were things that looked like fireflies. They weren't living beings, but light dots. The specks of light flickered like the wisps. Moreover, this was an abyss to begin with. It gave off a horrifying feeling. However, Jiang Chun and the other 2 were cultivators. To them, the concept of ghosts and gods was nothing more than a joke. "It's the end!" Half an hour later, Jiang Chun exclaimed softly. He lowered his head and finally saw the bottom of the abyss. However, Jiang Chun's hair stood on end after taking a glance. Dao Gui and Zhao Mujio's faces turned pale. That was because at the bottom of the abyss was a sea of blood. Corpses and severed limbs floated in the sea of blood. "Is this a Jurahel?" Dao Gui stuttered with his eyes closed. "We're going to fall? Blood sea? How can there be such a thing in a place like this?" Jiang Chun was shocked as well. One had to know that the corpses of countless living beings were required to form a sea of blood. Furthermore, for a sea of blood to form, there had to be the blood of gods. However, this was the godless continent where there were no gods. Then, how was the sea of blood formed? Thud! Thud! A few breaths later, Jiang Chun and the other 2 lost control of their bodies. The powers in their bodies were suppressed to the extreme, and they could not even fly. With a few muffled thuds, the 3 of them fell into the sea of blood. In an instant, a monstrous blood aura rushed into the bodies of the 3 of them. The corpses floating around came to life and pounced towards the 3 of them. What the hell? Morning Wine could no longer remain calm. After screaming, he flopped in the sea of blood and swam into the distance. Jiang Chun and Dao Gui did not feel good either. With the blood aura entering their bodies, they were in a daze as if they were about to lose their consciousness. "Let's go ashore first," Jiang Chun said in a low voice. The 3 of them swam desperately in the same direction. At the same time, more and more corpses rushed over. Fortunately, these corpses did not have any consciousness and were not fast. Like Jiang Chun and the rest, they could only swim in the sea of blood and could not fly. Why is the Desolate God's training ground like this? Dao Gui frowned. I heard people say that the Desolate God's training ground is like a fairyland, but this place is simply hell. Did we enter the wrong place? Morning Wine asked. However, Jiang Chun and the other 2 did not know the correct way to enter the Desolate God's training ground. Right now, the 3 of them couldn't care less. They could only swim towards the shore. However, after swimming for half an hour, They were still surrounded by the sea of blood. There was no way to reach the shore. I can't take it anymore. If this continues, the blood aura will enter my body and I will lose consciousness, Dao Gui said in a low voice. What's with the blood aura here? It's mixed with monstrous resentment and a trace of divine power. Jiangchen was puzzled. Don't talk about it. I've been bitten a few times already. Morning Wine's face was dark. There was a skeleton hanging on his leg, and it was biting his toe. Fortunately, Morning Wine's body was extremely strong. He had cultivated the Buddhist Zhang's 6 golden body, so the skeleton could not even break his skin. However, this feeling was indeed hair-raising. There's a boat. A boat? After a few breaths, the three of them saw a dilapidated sailboat floating in the sea of blood not far away. The sail on the sailboat was tattered and the mast was broken. Moreover, they could vaguely see figures standing on the sailboat. Spectre ship? Jiang Chen frowned. Let's go up first. Let's go. Immediately, the three of them exerted their strength and swam toward the sailboat. After half an hour, the three of them successfully boarded the ship. However, when they boarded the ship, the three of them were dumbfounded and shocked. This was because the sailboat was filled with living beings. These living beings were wearing the same armor and holding halberds, standing on both sides of the deck. Their bodies emitted waves of vitality, but they stood in place like statues and did not move at all. Chapter 294. What the hell? Morning Wine wiped the blood off his body and walked in front of a living being. After sizing it up carefully, he exclaimed, "Not dead yet. It's just silent." They're not dead. They used a special method to seal their lifespan and vitality, Jiangchen explained. This way, they can live forever and even live for tens of thousands of years. Is this sailboat going to cross the Blood Sea? Dao Gui asked. He walked to the rudder and saw that there was an array formation on the rudder that fixed the direction of the sailboat. At the same time, in front of the rudder, there was a living being fighting with his eyes closed, holding a compass in his hands. On the compass, not only were the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams engraved, but the words Dongsheng were also engraved in the 4 directions. Someone from the Dongsheng dynasty, the dynasty that disappeared overnight? Jiangchen and Morning Wine hurriedly walked over. When they saw the compass, they couldn't help but be moved. It was once a powerful dynasty with forces spread across the entire godless continent, and all living beings in the world submitted to it. But for some reason, the entire dynasty disappeared overnight. Now, there was actually a sailboat from the Dongsheng dynasty in the Blood Sea. Where was this sailboat going? The former Dongsheng dynasty disappeared overnight. Could they find some clues on this sailboat? However, when Jiang Chun and the other 2 searched the entire sailboat, they couldn't find any clues. Only a few lines of ancient words were written on a piece of tattered cloth in front of a living being. However, the ancient words were too difficult to understand. Moreover, the cloth was tattered, and many of the ancient words had disappeared. These ancient words were difficult to connect together, and the contents of the ancient words were difficult to understand. Eternal City. In the end, Jiang Chun and the other 2 translated with difficulty and could only understand the words. Could it be that this sailboat's final goal was to go to Eternal City? Have you heard of Eternal City? Jiang Chen asked. Morning Wine and Dao Gui couldn't help but shake their heads. The godless continent was vast and boundless. There were many mysterious places and even areas that couldn't be explored. Therefore, there were some places that weren't even recorded in ancient books. In that case, did the Eternal City exist? Was it outside the Blood Sea? Would they be able to enter the Eternal City after crossing the Blood Sea? Wang! All of a sudden, a series of tremors could be heard. One by one, the silent living beings shattered like porcelain vases. Their life auras disappeared. In the blink of an eye, all of the living beings on the main ship were destroyed. They're all dead. Even if you use some special means to seal your lifespan and blood chi, You won't be able to live forever. This ship has been in the Blood Sea for at least 10,000 years. Jiang Chen and the others speculated that the ship had been sailing in the Blood Sea for tens of thousands of years, but it still hadn't reached its destination. Meanwhile, in the end, none of these creatures woke up. Their lifespans were exhausted, and then they shattered like porcelain bottles. After traveling for tens of thousands of years, we still haven't reached our destination and haven't even reached the shore. What about us? Dao Gui said in a low voice. The three of us won't have to spend the rest of our lives on this ship, right? The Blood Sea can't be endless, Jiang Chen said. After traveling for tens of thousands of years, perhaps we're about to reach our destination. We can only stay on the ship. Morning Wine sighed. He never thought that things would turn out like this. They didn't enter the desolate gods' training ground and ended up in an unknown Blood Sea. Now, they didn't even know when they would be able to leave this place. Helpless, the three of them sat on the deck and stared at each other. Time continued to pass. At the same time, in the real desolate gods' training ground, it had been 3 days since Jiang Chen and the others entered the Blood Sea. In 3 days, all the prodigies from the 7 states had entered the desolate gods' training ground. Moreover, several great battles had broken out. Among them, the prodigies from the barren state were targeted by the other 6 states and suffered heavy casualties. However, there were also a few who were extremely powerful. They suppressed the prodigies from the other states so much that they almost couldn't breathe. For example, Wakako, the tyrant. This guy was incomparably domineering. No matter where he went, he had the attitude of an unparalleled overlord. He had once fought with the top 10 prodigies from the eastern state. After winning, he became famous. At the same time, Tian Shui had severely injured the third-rank prodigy from the western state. Zhang Lu and the others were also ferocious. They weren't any weaker than the prodigies from the other states. Only Xiao Qingyi kept a low profile. He didn't want to cause trouble wherever he went. But in the dark, who knew how many undead this guy had summoned? And he was secretly making a sneaky move. The competition in the desolate gods' training ground was very intense. Among them, the hunting slope was the most tragic. There were many seeds of Taoism here that could help people improve their seeds of Taoism. Ordinary people usually had 6th-level seeds of Taoism. Some prodigies would cultivate their seeds of Taoism to 9th level or even higher. However, once one's cultivation level surpassed the supremacy realm, it would be impossible to cultivate a seed of Taoism. Therefore, many people wanted to go back and cultivate again. However, they couldn't bear to destroy part of their cultivation level. As a result, the seeds of Taoism here became the most sought-after item. Even if a heaven realm cultivator or a sage came, as long as they could obtain a seed of Taoism and merge it with themselves, their seeds of Taoism would advance. Since the opening of the desolate gods' training ground, dozens of people had obtained seeds of Taoism and advanced their seeds of Taoism. There were even people who directly broke through because of the advancement of their seeds of Taoism. There were even people who directly broke through to the quasi-sage realm because of the advancement of their seeds of Taoism in the desolate gods' training ground. They were just one step away from becoming a sage. Of course, among the prodigies from the 7 states who entered the desolate gods' training ground, a few of them were able to break through to the sage realm. However, there were special laws and orders here. Sage realm cultivators couldn't enter. If one broke through to the sage realm in the desolate gods' training ground, they would be expelled by the laws and orders here. Once expelled, it was equivalent to giving up all the good fortune in the desolate gods' training ground. Therefore, there were some people who could have broken through to the saint realm, but they forcefully suppressed their cultivation. I wonder how Boss is doing. At this moment, Zhang Lu and Bai Fengyu had arrived near the hunting slope. Both of them had bloodstains on their bodies. They had fought all the way here. At the same time, Wakako and Xiao Qingyi had also arrived. After the 4 of them met, they began to work together and rushed into the hunting slope to snatch the seeds of Taoism. At this moment, in the Blood Sea, on the sailboat, Jiangchen and the other two still didn't know that the desolate god's training ground had already opened. The three of them sat on the deck and were drowsy. This was because the three of them had been too bored over the past few days. In front of them was a boundless blood sea. In this place, there was really nothing else to do other than chatting every day. What's that? Suddenly, Dao Gui's eyes focused. He looked into the distance and saw a blurry shadow. Jiangchen immediately stood up. The brilliance of the sun and moon flashed in his eyes. Then his face was filled with excitement. This was because the blurry shadow in front of them was a mountain. This meant that they were about to reach the shore. Chapter 295. If there was a mountain, they could reach the shore. If they reached the shore, there would be a way out. Jiangchen and the other two were extremely excited. They were almost bored out of their minds after the past few days. In fact, the three of them even wondered if they would have to spend the rest of their lives on the sailboat. Thankfully, there was always a way out. After traveling for more than 10,000 years, the sailboat was finally about to reach the shore. It's a pity that the people of the Dong Sheng dynasty did not manage to persevere until here, Jiangchen sighed. That's right. If they didn't die, they would definitely wake up when we reach the shore. At that time, we can ask them about the Dongxing dynasty, Dao Gui said. He was extremely curious about the Dongxing dynasty as well. Say, what do you guys think is on the mountain beyond the Blood Sea? Morning Wine murmured. I keep feeling that this place is extremely strange and creepy. Is there any other way? Jiangchen said in annoyance. Right now, there was no other way apart from reaching the shore. Were they going to spend the rest of their lives on the sailboat? Half a day later, the sailboat finally reached the shore. As far as the eye could see, there was a barren mountain range in front of him that stretched for thousands of miles. There was not a single blade of grass on the entire mountain, much less a living being. However, there was a gigantic bronze tripod at the top of the mountain. There was a talisman on the tripod that shone with a divine light like a sun. There's more than one mountain. By the time the three of them reached the top of the mountain, they looked into the distance and discovered that there were a few more mountains. Upon closer count, there were 9 of them. Each of them spanned thousands of miles, resembling 9 massive ferocious beasts that prostrated on the ground. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Beyond the 9 mountains is still the Blood Sea. This place is surrounded by the Blood Sea, Jiangchen said in a deep voice. Is there no way out? This tripod looks like the demon suppression tripod, no matter how I look at it. Dao Gui stood in front of the bronze tripod, and his eyes shone brightly. His gaze was locked onto the talisman on the bronze tripod. The talisman was blood red, as though it was made from fresh blood. Within the tripod were withered bones and an unknown weapon. He could not tell what the weapon looked like. It resembled a saber or a sword. However, upon closer inspection, the weapon seemed to be changing constantly, resembling a halberd or arrow at times. Impossible! At this moment, Jiangchen exclaimed, because a legend had occurred to him. According to legend, at the beginning of the world, there was a cauldron that suppressed all evil and sealed the devil race under the 9 mountains. However, after the chaos was cleared, the 9 mountains disappeared, and the cauldron also disappeared. As for the devil, no one had seen him since ancient times. This was a legend that had been passed down since ancient times. No one believed it. But now, when Jiangchen saw the bronze cauldron and the weapon in it, Jiangchen believed it. The demon-suppressing cauldron is a chaotic green color. There are demon-suppressing talismans on top of the cauldron, and there are myriad transformations weapons inside the cauldron, which can suppress all things in the world. Jiangchen said seriously, could this place really be the legendary 9 mountains? That can't be. Dao Gui was dumbfounded. He had also heard of the legends of 9 Mountain and the demonic suppression cauldron. However, when he really encountered it, it was still hard to believe. If this is really the 9 mountains and this cauldron is the demon-suppressing cauldron, then under my feet, morning and evening wine had a strange expression. Is there a devil sealed under my feet? It should be. Jiang Chun said softly and warned the three of them not to touch the demon-suppressing cauldron. That was because the demon-suppressing cauldron was a natural object and could not be touched by mortals. Once touched, it would shatter. At that time, the suppressed devil clan would also be able to break free. How strange! The legendary Nine Mountains is actually here, Dao Gui said in a low voice. But there doesn't seem to be any eternal fortress here. Previously on the sailboat, Jiang Chun and the rest found out that the destination of this sailboat was most likely a place called Eternal Fortress. However, this was the Nine Mountains. There was not a single city. Then, where exactly was the so-called Eternal Fortress? Could it be that behind the Nine Mountains at the end of the Blood Sea, the Eternal Fortress was there? After the Nine Mountains, there was the Blood Sea. What was after the Blood Sea? Was the Eternal Fortress still behind? Why did the Dong Shung dynasty send this sailboat to the Eternal Fortress? One had to know that the lowest cultivation level of the living beings on the sailboat was at the Saint Realm. If the saints on the sailboat were anywhere else, they would undoubtedly be an extremely terrifying force. However, such a terrifying force had exhausted its lifespan when it was crossing the Sea of Blood. In the end, it perished. Maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me. I think I saw someone at that moment. Dao Gui rubbed his eyes and looked at the 8th mountain in the distance. There was a figure standing on the top of the mountain and seemed to be looking at them. Jiang Chun and Zhao Mujio looked over. As soon as they had a look, their hair stood on end. The devil has appeared, Jiang Chun exclaimed softly. The light of the sun and moon flashed in his eyes, and yin and yang qi gathered. He saw very clearly that the figure standing on the top of the 8th mountain was a human. However, there was a huge difference between this person and an ordinary human. It had horns on its head, and its skin was crimson red, and it was covered in obscure veins. His eyes were black, and his pupils were snow white. This was exactly the same as the description of the devil recorded in the ancient books. "He's here!" Chao Mujio exclaimed. He saw that the devil was flying in the air and charging toward the three of them. How can he still fly? Jiang Chun couldn't stay calm anymore. He hurriedly formed a seal with both hands and set up 6 defensive arrays. One had to know that ever since they entered the abyss and came to this place, Jiang Chun and the other two's cultivation levels had been suppressed by an invisible force. Now, the three of them couldn't even fly in the air, but this demon could do it. This meant that the devil's strength was far above theirs. Slaves? After a few breaths, the devil landed outside the array and faced Jiang Chun and the other two. He frowned and spoke in human language. His speech was very sluggish, as if it was because he hadn't spoken for a long time. "Benefactor, all living beings are equal. There's no such thing as slaves," Chao Mujio said with a smile, but his legs were trembling. "Sage Realm." Dao Gui's heart trembled. Encountering a Sage Realm devil here was no different from running into the gates of hell. "Don't be afraid," Jiang Chun comforted. He thought about it and said seriously, "At most, the three of us will die together. At least we'll have company in the Yellow Springs." Chao Mujio and Dao Gui were speechless. They were already at this stage, and he was still talking nonsense? Of course, they didn't know that Jiang Chun had seen all kinds of storms. Facing a devil, Jiang Chun was naturally very calm. Moreover, while they were talking, Jiang Chun had deployed 18 more tactical formations in a row, a total of 24 defensive arrays. Jiang Chun didn't believe that the devil could break through them. Even a supreme sage would have to waste some time. Chapter 296. At the beginning of the chaos, the sacred race was the emperor, the fiend whispered. However, for some reason, the world mistook the sacred race for the fiend race. There was even a sage who used his life to open the heavens and sent down the demon suppression cauldron, suppressing our race in the Blood Sea. What happened after that? Jiang Chun asked curiously. He could not see any hostility in the eyes of the fiend. However, although there was no hostility in the eyes of the fiend, there was a hint of arrogance. It was an innate arrogance. as though he was a natural-born king. Then, that's all. The fiend sighed. From then on, there were no more sacred races in the world. Only the fiend race that you guys speak of. Then how did you escape? Dao Gui asked. Was the seal here released? It's not that easy, the fiend smiled bitterly. However, no matter how strong a seal is, it will weaken with the passage of time. Right now, the seal here is already weakening. I was merely lucky to be the first to escape. At that point, the fiend suddenly turned around and looked at the sailboat in the blood sea beside the mountain with a hint of helplessness and melancholy in his eyes. He stared at the sailboat and remained silent for a long time. Jiang Chun and the others did not disturb him either. After half an incense stick's time, the fiend finally spoke. Back then, due to a mistake made by the sacred race, the world called us the fiend race and thought that we had betrayed the masses. Laughable. Laughable. Only the Dongsheng dynasty of the later generations understood the truth and wanted to come here to release the seal of the sacred race. However, the people sent by the Dongsheng dynasty did not manage to come here alive after a long time. How can we tell if you're telling the truth? Jiang Qin narrowed his eyes. The fiend looked calm and did not seem like he was lying. However, a person's heart was separated by the stomach. Who knew how much of the fiend's words were true and how much of it was false? What do I need to lie to you guys about? The fiend snapped out of his trance, and a look of disdain flashed through his eyes. With a wave of his hand, the 24-array formation set up by Jiang Chun shattered instantly. All the spells, restrictions, formations, and boundaries in the world are useless against our sacred race. Why would I lie to you? After all, you're nothing more than ants in my eyes. The Azure Dragon overlooks all living things. Why would it be so bored as to converse with ants or even deceive them? As soon as these words came out, the faces of Jiang Chun and the others became extremely ugly. Among the three of them, which one of them wasn't an expert? Not to mention the top 100 on the Baron list, Jiang Chen's status alone was enough to overwhelm everyone. As for Dao Ge and morning and evening wine, one was the successor of the Taoist 9 syllables mantra, while the other was the successor of the freedom technique. Were the two of them also weak? Since you don't want to kill us, then can you tell us how to get out of here? Jiang Chen asked, but his heart was filled with fear. It wasn't easy for him to be reborn. If he were to die here, there would be no one to blame. You can leave once you enter the demon-suppressing cauldron, the demons said. But as you know, the demon suppression cauldron is a natural object. It can't be touched by the mortal world. Once touched, the demon suppression cauldron will collapse and the sacred tribe will be able to be reborn. We can only leave by entering the demon suppression cauldron? Dao Gui frowned as he thought in his heart. If this devil is deceiving us, then the world would fall into chaos once the devil is released. Believe me, and you can leave. The sacred tribe will also be reborn. The demon said, if you don't believe me, I won't do anything to you. How can we believe you so easily? Morning and evening wine shook his head and said, it's a small matter for us to leave. Everyone will die one day. At most, we'll spend the rest of our lives here. But if we believe you and you lie to us, the world will be in chaos once the demons are reborn. What Zhao Muzhou had said was certainly true. Jiang Chun and Dao Gui nodded in agreement. After all, compared to the world, their lives were indeed a small matter. In fact, they were insignificant. Words can lie, but can soul memories also lie? The demon said softly. Then he opened his arms, and a soul floated out of his body. The soul was like a ball of flames, emitting an extremely terrifying aura. And in the soul, there were images flashing. Those were the demons' memories. In those images, tens of thousands of demons were in front of an ancient and majestic city. Their blood chi was overflowing, and their eyes were filled with determination and murderous intent. Opposite them was a group of living beings shrouded in chaotic aura. Both sides fought. The demons fought with tens of thousands of people against hundreds of thousands of people. In the end, the demons were defeated. Only about 30 of them retreated and left the ancient city. the ancient city collapsed. The enemy broke through the ancient city's defenses and entered another world. That world was none other than the godless continent. Did you see clearly? The sacred tribe used the lives of all of us to resist the enemy. The demon's voice was agitated, and a fierce glint appeared in his eyes. The sacred tribe tried our best. Only about 30 of us were left of the tens of thousands. That's right. We retreated only because the sacred tribe didn't want to be exterminated. More than 30 people retreated just to preserve the last trace of the sacred tribe's bloodline. Could it be that this is also wrong? If it is wrong, why is there only us demons in the immortal city? There are countless living beings in the world. Why didn't anyone come to support us? When the city is broken and the foreign races invade the godless continent, the world will think that the sacred tribe has betrayed us. How can there be such a thing? The demon became more and more agitated. His aura erupted like a volcano. If he didn't subconsciously restrain himself, just this aura alone would have been enough to kill Jiang Chun and the other two. Now, do you see clearly? After a dozen breaths, the demon put away his soul and his emotions gradually calmed down. Under this blood sea, there are 36 sacred tribe members sealed. But now, only 2 are left. The demon sighed. Even if they are released, including me, there are only 3 left. Only 3 left? Jiang Chen felt melancholy. There were more than 10,000 people, but now, only 3 were left. Words can lie, but soul memories can't. Dao Gui sighed. A dignified monarch clan, but now there are only 3 left. Then why didn't you explain back then? If you can show us your soul memories, why don't you show others? If you explain clearly, the sacred tribe wouldn't have been sealed here, right? Morning Wine asked. The moment he said that, the devil couldn't help but snort and say, "My sacred race is strong enough to make the world fear us. There are people who want to destroy the sacred tribe. Back then, we explained and showed people our soul memories. But in the end, we still couldn't escape the fate of being sealed. If not for the supreme merits of the sacred tribe, those people wouldn't dare to kill us all. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any sacred tribe in this world. We would have been eliminated long ago." Chapter 297. That's how the world works. The weak are bullied, and so are the strong. Jiang Chen sighed. He had a deep understanding of this feeling. Back then, as a godly king, he was so powerful. But in the end, he was still besieged by 30 chief gods and died. In this world, there was no true invincibility. Living in this world, there would be a day when a calamity would befall you. Just like the sacred clan, they were powerful and born to be emperors. But in the end, there were only 3 people left in the entire clan. If you are released, what will you do? Revenge? Jiang Chen asked. Revenge? Huh? What revenge can there be? The demon smiled wryly. So many years have passed. Our old enemies, those who try to harm us, are all dead. If we are released, the last 3 people of the sacred clan will only have one goal, and that is to take back the eternal fortress. Jiang Chen's heart couldn't help but thump when he heard that. The entire sacred clan fought until there were only 30 people left. After being sealed for countless years, there were only 3 people left. And if these 3 people were released, they would not want revenge, but to take back the eternal fortress. Although Jiang Chun had never seen the eternal fortress, he could guess that it was a line of defense for the godless continent. The clan can be destroyed, the body can die, but the godless continent cannot be lost. In the past, millions of gods died in battle. There were also supreme sages who used their lives to condense stars and build the Great Wall of the Milky Way. There was also an almighty who fought millions of foreign tribes alone. The sacred clan can do it too, the demon said in a low voice. If we are alive, we will bleed our last drop of blood for the godless continent. What happened in the past? What are the foreign tribes? Jiang Chen asked. As he spoke, his palm had already touched the demon suppression cauldron. Buzz! Immediately, a few explosions sounded. The demon suppression cauldron was touched by mortal dust and immediately shattered. At the same time, the 9 mountains shook, and the sound of chains breaking could be heard. Then, under the blood sea, coffins floated up. They were covered with seals and talismans. There were a total of 36 coffins, and one of them had already collapsed. It was most likely the coffin of the demon in front of him. He had already escaped. As for the other 33 coffins, the moment they were born, they turned into dust. The saints sealed within the coffins had all perished. To be more precise, they were already dead. Only 2 coffins remained. They hadn't collapsed, but the saints inside hadn't come out either. They have been sealed for far too long. They have yet to awaken. The saints sighed. Perhaps they will never wake up in this lifetime. Perhaps they will wake up tomorrow. Sigh. Jiang Chen sighed and bowed deeply to the coffins. Dao Gui was speechless. He didn't say anything, but when he looked at the coffins, his eyes shone with respect. The dead die. The king lives. Morning and night wine said softly. He raised the wine gourd in his hand, and wine dripped into the air. To all of you. Wait! At this moment, Jiang Chen suddenly thought of something. The demon-suppressing cauldron was shattered. The only way to leave this place was to jump into the fiend suppression cauldron. Now that the fiend suppression cauldron was broken, where should they jump to? They couldn't jump out. Ugh, the fiend suppression cauldron is broken. Dao Gui reacted as well, and his expression fell. What should we do? I'll send you guys out, the fiend said. Let them awaken slowly here. I'll go out with you guys and see what the current godless mainland looks like. You can bring us out? Morning and night wine was stunned. The seal has been released. I have the ability to bring you guys out for the time being, the fiend said. With that said, the fiend raised his hand and a blood cloud appeared, enveloping Jiang Chen and the other 2. It tore through the void and escaped from this place. Light flashed before their eyes, and a blood light burst forth. There were even bolts of lightning that sounded in their ears. They were traversing the void and traversing through space. After several breaths had passed, when the blood-red light in front of them had disappeared, and when the thunderous sound had dissipated, Jiang Chen and his 2 companions had appeared in the sky above the abyss. They were above a cloud. In front of them was a gigantic door. Vaguely, they could see a small world behind the door. I'll send you here, the fiend said. We'll meet again if fate allows it. From now on, there are no more fiends, only the holy ones. Jiang Chen said seriously. Everyone calls you fiends, but the 3 of us respect fiends as saints. It's just a false reputation, the fiend laughed. However, there was a hint of sadness in his laughter and words. After that, the fiend left. Jiang Chen and the other 2 exchanged glances, and their eyes flashed. This is the entrance to the Wilderness Gods Dojo. What the F***CK? They said it was below the abyss. This is clearly above the abyss. The energy below the abyss gathered and shot into the sky, illuminating the entrance to the Wilderness Gods Dojo. It's just that we misunderstood it previously. Fortunately, the 3 of them walked out of the abyss safely. Then, the next step was to enter the Wilderness Gods Dojo. Heaven's Pride from the Eastern Continent, Demon from the Southern Continent, Monster from the Northern Continent. I'd like to see how strong you are. Morning and evening wine took a sip of wine and looked drunk. He said, I'll go first. Immeasurable heavenly lord, Dao Gui whispered and rushed into the door. At this moment, Jiang Chen hesitated outside the door. This was because his cultivation had not recovered to its peak. Now, Jiang Chen's cultivation had just recovered to the upper level of the Immortal King stage. If he entered the Wilderness Gods Dojo with this cultivation, he would be slaughtered like a pig. However, Jiang Chen thought about it carefully. Since he was going to enter anyway, why should he stay outside the door? He thought that Wakako and the others should have already entered the Wilderness Gods Dojo. When the time came, it should be safe to meet them. Then, Jiang Chen stepped out, passed through the door, and entered the Wilderness Gods Dojo. The Wilderness Gods Dojo was a small world that stretched for tens of thousands of miles. It was divided into several areas. The center of it was a group of palaces. The other areas were the herb garden, the training ground, the scripture library, and the alchemy room. Other than that, there were mountains and rivers. In the mountains and rivers, there were many spiritual herbs and spiritual medicines, as well as rare heavenly treasures. In fact, there might even be some strange things. After Jiang Chen entered the Wilderness Gods Dojo, he came to the outermost area. Where are they? At this moment, Jiang Chen was stunned. Dao Gui and Morning and Evening Wine, who had just entered the dojo, had disappeared. These two guys had left him behind. *CK. We just went through life and death together, and now they've left me here alone. Jiang Chen was furious. It was too dangerous for him to walk alone in the Wilderness Gods Dojo with his cultivation at the upper level of the Immortal King stage. Thinking about it, Jiang Chen decided to find a place to hide and wait for his cultivation to recover before going out. Jiang Chen walked stealthily and hid his aura until he came before a large river. This place was empty, and there were rocks on both sides of the river. It looked desolate and there was no one around, and hiding here was definitely the best choice. Chapter 298. However, when Jiang Chen entered the river and was about to dive to the bottom of the river, a splash suddenly appeared not far away from him. Immediately after, a woman came out of the water like a hibiscus. Her shoulders were pink, and her hair was dripping with water as it scattered behind her. This woman was very beautiful and had a graceful figure. She even had a pair of phoenix eyes that were seductive. "Oh, you can compare it to Nayla Mayer," Jiang Chen praised. However, the woman was dumbfounded. She had just come out of the bath and was naked. However, Jiang Chen was staring at her. "I'll kill you." After being stunned for a few breaths, the woman flew into a rage. She took out a rainbow-colored dress from her interspatial ring and draped it over her body. Then, array patterns burst forth from her body. "I didn't look," Jiang Chen hurriedly explained. "Even if I did, I didn't do it on purpose." "You're still talking." The woman was furious. The array patterns condensed and 12 array formations fell in succession. Killing arrays, confinement arrays, and sealing arrays. Everything was available. 12 array formations in succession? "Little girl, you're quite capable in the path of array formations," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "However, these array formations can't do anything to me." If he encountered other professions, Jiang Chen might be afraid. However, Jiang Chen was not afraid when he encountered an array formation master. The main attack method of an array formation master was to set up arrays. As for setting up arrays, it did not matter if one's cultivation was strong or weak. As long as one understood the array patterns and could set up an array formation, it was enough. Of course, the higher the cultivation, the stronger the array formation. For Jiang Chen, with his attainments in array formations, even if his cultivation was only at the upper level of the Emperor realm, the array formation he set up was enough to contend against the array formation set up by a heaven realm cultivator. Yin Yang. For symbols. 6 directions. 8 trigrams. At this moment, Jiang Chen formed seals one after another. The array patterns were like spirit snakes that danced around him. In a short instant, 4 formations were formed, and they stood towering in the 4 directions of east, west, south, and north. The 4 screens of light merged together like a barrier that protected Jiang Chen. At the same time, a Taiji diagram spun leisurely, and the chi of yin and yang reversed, dispelling the array formation that the woman had set up. 10 directions spell formation? The woman cried out in alarm as she retreated to avoid the yin and yang energies. Then, she stood on the surface of the water and stared at Jiang Chen. She asked, "How did you get my Dongfang family's decimal formation? Does the 10 directions formation belong to your Dongfang clan?" Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said, "I remember that this decimal array technique was created by the Eastern bird 5,000 years ago. Dongfang Niao, is the ancestor of my Dongfang family. The woman said coldly, "Speak. Where did you get this 10-direction formation technique? Is there a traitor in my Dongfang clan who secretly spread the 10-direction formation technique?" "This? How should I say this?" Jiang Chen muttered. He could not tell the woman that he had shamelessly asked for the 10-direction formation technique when he met the Eastern Bird in the Ninth Heaven Divine World, right? This was embarrassing. As Divine King Tian Shun, Jiang Chen couldn't bring himself to ask someone for something. 3 talents, 5 elements, 7 stars, 9 palaces. At this moment, the woman did not continue to ask. Her heart was burning with anger as she also used the 10-direction formation technique. However, she was using an odd number of formations. Boom! Boom! In an instant, above the river, radiance rose, and the array patterns were like spirit snakes that intertwined and collided with each other. The power of the various formations was like a violent storm bombarding the river. The river water was cut off by the array formation, and even the riverbed was dried up. As soon as the riverbed dried up, Jiang Chun and the woman's expressions turned serious. Their eyes lit up immediately. In the next moment, the two of them did not continue to attack. They did not even care about the formations that they had set up. Both of them rushed towards the dried-up riverbed. This was because there was a 3-colored lotus there. The lotus had 3 colors. One was the sky, one was the earth, and the last was the spirit. This lotus was the Tri-Sheng lotus. The Tri-Sheng lotus was not very helpful for cultivation, but it was very effective for healing injuries. This was a sacred medicine for healing injuries. No matter how severe the injuries were, as long as one consumed the Tri-Sheng lotus, under the nourishment of the 3 great forces of heaven, earth, and spirit, even bones could be healed. Lightning elemental. Instant purple lightning. At this moment, Jiang Chun used a spell. His body was like a purple lightning bolt that flashed out. Before the woman could get close to the Tri-Sheng lotus, Jiang Chun picked it up. After that, Jiang Chun did not stop. He took the Tri-Sheng lotus and ran far away. "Stop right there!" The woman was furious. Not only had Jiang Chun seen her naked, but now even the Tri-Sheng lotus had been snatched away by Jiang Chun. She was angry, but she was also confused about how Jiang Chun had gotten the 10 directions formation method. She jumped into the air and stepped on the spell. Her speed increased tremendously, and she was like a swan that flew towards Jiang Chun. "You can't catch up with me. Stop chasing me," Jiang Chun said without looking back. When it came to escaping, if he said he was the best, no one would dare to say they were second. Of course, Jiang Chun was not afraid of this woman. He was just worried that if he fought with this woman, the shockwaves from the battle would attract other people. In his current state, if he met other opponents, he would most likely be defeated. At that time, it would be fine if the Tri-Sheng lotus was snatched away. If he met a ruthless person who killed him to steal the lotus, Jiang Chun would be finished. Let's see how long you can run. However, although this woman could not catch up with Jiang Chun, she was not slow at all. The two of them, one in front and one behind, crossed tens of thousands of miles in half an hour. Along the way, someone saw this scene and exclaimed, "The genius of the Dongfang family. Dongfang Yeching? Who is she chasing? She has a murderous look on her face." "I remember that Dongfang Yeching doesn't like killing," someone guessed. Dongfang Yeching's face was as black as ink when she heard these words. She could not tell these people that Jiang Chen had seen her body and snatched the Tri-Sheng lotus. Otherwise, her chastity would be ruined and more people would come to snatch the Tri-Sheng lotus. How rich is this hooligan's spiritual energy? He has already flown more than 30,000 miles. Why hasn't he stopped? After half an hour, Dongfang Yeching's forehead was covered in cold sweat. She had used up more than half of her spiritual energy, but Jiang Chun still did not stop. At the same time, Jiang Chun was also stunned. He thought to himself that Dongfang Yeching was really good at chasing. Was her spiritual energy still not used up? "The hunting pass slope is up ahead. You'll die if you go there." After a few breaths, Dongfang Yeching shouted, "Why don't you stop and give me the Tri-Sheng lotus?" I can spare your life. Do you think I'm stupid? Look at you. You can't wait to swallow me alive. I'll die if I stop, Jiangchen said. In the heavenly star, the power of heaven and earth exploded again, and his speed skyrocketed. F***CK. Is that an Emperor Realm cultivator? No way. How can an Emperor Realm cultivator enter the wilderness god's training ground? At the same time, many people saw Jiangchen. When they realized his cultivation level, they were all stunned. One should know that only the top 100 geniuses of each continent could enter the wilderness god's training ground. Could an Emperor Realm cultivator enter the top 100? Chapter 299. I think I saw the leader. Just then, Zhang Lu, who was standing on top of an ancient tree, squinted his eyes and looked into the sky. As soon as he spoke, he saw Wakako dashing out. His purple chi was like a rainbow that pierced through the clouds. The Overlord is attacking. What is he going to do? Those four guys are too ruthless, too fierce. In this hunting path slope generation, not many people dare to go against them. Around them, many people exclaimed and stared at Wakako. After a few breaths, when Wakako arrived before Jiangchen, Jiangchen stopped and smiled. What a coincidence. What's wrong with her? Wakako asked directly. Take care of her. Jiangchen didn't say much. He pointed at Dongfang Yeching, who had caught up to him, and said, We have no grudges. Don't kill her. Just teach her a lesson. Okay. Wakako nodded. Then he focused his gaze and threw a punch. In an instant, the light from his fist spread for thousands of miles. The purple light was like a dragon. The power of the Overlord was like an erupting volcano that erupted from his body. The Overlord was unparalleled in the world. His power could shake the heavens, move the earth, and even kill the gods. At that moment, the purple light from his fist exploded. There was nothing fancy about it. It was the simplest punch. However, it was this punch that caused the air to distort, as if it was about to collapse. Dongfang Yeching's expression changed drastically. Her slender hands formed a series of hand seals in front of her, and the yin-yang triad formation suddenly took shape. Boom! However, after two explosions, the two formations crumbled like they were made of paper. Then, the light from his fist shot out like a real dragon and landed on Dongfang Yeching's body. Puff! Dongfang Yeching spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was pale and her body was shaking. You dare to attack me? Dongfang Yeching raised an eyebrow and steadied herself. She glared at Wakako and said, Do you know who I am? I don't care who you are. Wakako glared at him and said, If you want to kill him, I will kill you. Wakako, how could you be so heavy-handed to a woman? Xiao Qingyi came too. He teased, If you don't know how to treat a woman well, you'll be single for the rest of your life. That's right. I told you to teach her a lesson. Jiang Chun joked. It seems that you are really going to be single for a lifetime. Wakako was stunned and felt wronged. He didn't use any martial skill at all for this punch. But who would have thought that Dongfang Qingye would not only fail to block the attack, but also be heavily injured? This can't be blamed on me? Tyrant, you are courting death. All of a sudden, a young man flew over from afar. Formation runes circled around him, making him look like a god of thunder. In his hand, a greenwood longsword flickered with sword light. His hair fluttered in the wind, and there was a fierce look between his brows. Dongfang Qingzhu, the third young master of the Dongfang clan. He specializes in both formations and swordsmanship. He is known as the sword formation master by many sky prides of the eastern state. Exclamations were heard all around, and the area was filled with people. Some sky prides from the eastern state even mentioned this young man's name and background. Brother, Dongfang Yeching's eyes were red as she clutched her chest. After calling out brother softly, she retreated to the side. Dongfang Qingye nodded slightly and walked to Wakako. Then, he raised the greenwood longsword in his hand and pointed it at Wakako. He said coldly, Do you want to die for touching my sister? I want to die. Can you do it? Wakako narrowed his eyes. The purple light in his eyes was restrained, but the aura of a tyrant around him was even more terrifying. Wakako, leave this to me, Xiaoqing said. You protect boss. I can do it myself. Wakako disagreed. His battle intent was raging. However, Xiaoqing shook his head. It's time for me to show off, right? No, this is my opponent. Wakako glared. Find someone else. For a moment, Wakako and Xiaoqing actually started arguing over who would attack first. This scene made everyone speechless. After all, Dongfang Qingzhu was ranked 21st on the Eastern States Prodigy roll. The Eastern States Sky Prides were generally stronger than those from the Barren State. If he could be ranked 21st in the Eastern State, he could be ranked top 10 in the Barren State. However, such a Sky Pride was nothing in front of Wakako and Xiaoqing. Are you done? Do you think you can beat me? Dongfang Qingzhu yelled angrily. Both of you, come at me together. Huh? Are you sure? Wakako and Xiaoqing froze, as if they couldn't believe what they just heard. Since the two of them entered the hunting slope, no one had dared to speak to them like this. Even the top 10 geniuses would be wary of the two of them. Give him some face. Both of you, come at me together, Jiangchen said mockingly. Don't embarrass the Barren State. Okay, no problem. Wakako and Xiaoqing immediately nodded when they heard that. After that, Little Ro charged out like a dragon, his entire body carrying a monstrous amount of blood energy and purple radiance. Dongfang Qingzhu was fearless. He stood in the air and stabbed out 6 times with his greenwood longsword. Under the 6 strikes, 6 sword auras shot toward Wakako like rainbows. At the same time, 6 formations were formed under these 6 strikes. 1 origin, 2 forms, 3 powers for divisions, 5 elements, 6 directions. A total of 6 formations formed a huge killing formation, trapping Wakako within. I prove my Tao with strength. There's nothing in this world that my fists can't break. Wakako was extremely domineering. He waved his fists and rays of fist auras shot out like suns. At the same time, Xiaoqing held a jade flute and slowly played a song. As the song sounded, skeletons broke out of the ground one after another. There were even undead creatures that appeared out of thin air. In just 3 breaths of time, thousands of undead skeletons appeared in the surroundings. These creatures did not have consciousness, but they were extremely powerful. They ignored the formations in front of them and charged forward, using the simplest method to push forward. Suppress all of you, Dongfang Qingzhu shouted. The greenwood longsword in his hand continuously struck out across the air. The sword aura lingered like the rotation of the stars. There were also 18 formations that were formed, covering this part of the world. Everyone around was moved. They felt the terrifying fluctuations emitted by those formations, and even breathing became difficult. However, in the next second, something shocking happened. Wakako punched out 36 times in a row, each punch more violent than the last. By the time the 36th punch was out, the fist aura had already penetrated all the formations and bombarded Dongfang Qingzhu's body. At the same time, the undead creatures rushed forward and pounced on Dongfang Qingzhu, biting his flesh. Necromancer? No, it's a necromancer. Suddenly, everyone saw spells condensing in front of Xiaoqing. Bolts of lightning fell, flames leaped out, and vines wrapped around Dongfang Qingzhu like giant arms. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.